The story opens on a quiet day, introducing us to Aoi Suda, a 19-year-old college student just trying to do a good job at his part-time work. He stands at a promotional booth with a bright, welcoming smile, presenting the supermarket's newest product, delicious Sengen pork sausages. Suda enthusiastically explains to the bustling crowd of shoppers all the wonderful ways they can prepare the sausages, highlighting how perfect they are for quick family meals. He leans forward with a warm expression, kindly offering a freshly cooked sample to a mother and her curious young son. The little boy takes a hesitant bite, and his eyes widen in pure delight as the delicious flavor surprises him. He turns to his mother, excitedly telling her how tasty the sausage is, and she happily agrees to buy a pack for him. Success! Suda beams with pride as customers, swayed by the boy's reaction, begin eagerly asking for the new product. Later, as his shift ends, Suda's manager praises him for his excellent work, remarking that sales always seem to skyrocket whenever he is on duty. He humbly gives her the credit, explaining that he was simply following the clever sales tactics she had taught him about appealing to children to win over their parents. A flashback reveals a younger, more animated Suda at a job interview, passionately explaining his strengths to a potential employer. He confidently declares that while he might seem average in many ways, he possesses an unbeatable talent for persuasion and speech. His unique skill has allowed him to work a wide variety of temp jobs, from bakeries and bars to massage parlors, gaining valuable experience from each one. Back in the present, the manager chuckles, teasingly acknowledging his talent for flattery, but he just laughs and insists he is only speaking the truth. Just then, two female co-workers approach to say goodbye, and Suda's confident demeanor immediately vanishes, replaced by a sudden, awkward tension. He offers them a stiff, formal bow as they leave, his discomfort obvious to everyone around him. He tries to suppress his blush, his face burning with embarrassment over his own awkwardness. His manager can't help but laugh, pointing out how surprisingly terrible he is at interacting with women outside of a customer service setting. Suda sheepishly admits that he gets incredibly nervous around girls, even though he's perfectly fine with customers, which makes his manager wonder if he truly wants to overcome this weakness. A clever, knowing smile spreads across her face as a brilliant idea begins to form in her mind. She tells him that she has a special favor to ask, one that requires someone with his unique gift for smooth talking. Leaning in impossibly close, she whispers a startling question, asking if he has any interest in the existence of parallel worlds. Suda stammers, completely flustered by her proximity, and manages to say that he's heard the topic is popular lately. Excellent! She exclaims, delighted that he's already familiar with the concept, as it will make her explanation much quicker. In a flash of light, she reveals a magnificent, ornate staff and joyfully announces her grand plan. She is sending him to another world that desperately needs saving. He stares at her in utter disbelief, completely baffled by her sudden and bizarre declaration. But a glowing, intricate magic circle flares to life beneath his feet, proving this is no joke, and he shouts for her to wait. She simply looks on, confirming her intention to send him to this other world as the light grows blindingly bright. His world dissolves into pure energy, and the last thing he does is scream out his manager's name in shock and confusion. He blinks, his vision slowly returning, his mind struggling to process what just happened. He finds himself sitting on a cold, cracked stone floor, the remnants of a summoning circle glowing faintly around him, surrounded by fallen knights. The grand hall is in ruins, a scene of utter destruction from a recent brutal battle. A deep voice suddenly calls out to him, and he jumps in fright, his heart pounding in his chest. A colossal warrior in dark, menacing armor looms over him, flanked by monstrous shadows that lurk in the darkness. A single glowing eye peers from the warrior's helmet as it demands to know if he is one of the summoned heroes. The horrifying reality crashes down on Suda. The magic circle. The talk of heroes. He's truly been transported to another world. The giant warrior interprets his terrified silence as a confession and raises its massive axe to execute him. But Suda desperately begs for it to stop. The creature is relentless, uttering a single chilling word as it prepares to strike him down. He throws his hands up to shield his face, letting out a scream of pure terror. With his last breath, he shouts that he is not a hero at all. The massive blade smashes into the ground just beside him, sending stone fragments flying as he scrambles away in fear. The warrior pauses, its glowing eye studying him with a hint of confusion, wondering if he is telling the truth. It glances from the broken summoning circle to Suta's strange, unfamiliar clothing, clearly puzzled by what it sees. The creature looms over him once more, demanding to know how many others were summoned alongside him. Suta trembles, utterly convinced that his life is about to end. He frantically wonders why his manager would send him to such a dangerous place, knowing he has to find a way to talk himself out of this. He takes a shaky breath, forcing himself to calm down and rely on his one true skill, stammering that there has been a huge misunderstanding. With a sweaty, desperate smile, he asks the terrifying demon if it keeps up with the latest fashion trends. The warrior is clearly baffled by the question, so Suta quickly claims his clothes are a popular new style from a distant coastal country. The demon expresses its doubt, pointing out the absurdity of wearing such attire so far south, and Suta's confidence begins to waver. But he refuses to give up, instantly switching into his professional customer service mode and passionately explaining that the breathable fabric is actually perfect for the warm climate. The armored demon considers his words, noting that his thin frame doesn't look like that of a fighter, and that a hero would never talk so casually to a demon. Suta holds his confident pose, his heart pounding as he anxiously awaits the demon's final judgment. At last, the warrior seems convinced, concluding that the true heroes must have already fled the scene, and Suta breathes a massive sigh of relief. He realizes he's surrounded by an army sent to eliminate the summoned party and tries to sneak away. But a sharp command stops him in his tracks. He freezes, a cold sweat running down his back as he turns to face the demon leader once more. The warrior sighs, bringing its hands to its helmet and explaining that it has a great many questions for him. Suta watches, confused and terrified, wondering what this creature could possibly want from him. The leader then reaches up and begins to remove its heavy, intimidating helmet. To his absolute astonishment, the face beneath the armor is not a monster's, but that of a young woman who introduces herself as Fafnir, captain of the Demon Lord's dragon unit. Suta's jaw drops in disbelief. A girl. He is frozen in a mixture of shock and fear, staring at the horned, red-haired demon captain. Fafnir turns to her soldiers and gives a firm command, ordering them to take the human back to the Demon Lord's castle. His eyes widen in terror as he realizes his ordeal is far from over. It's only just beginning. The scene shifts, and Suta now sits alone in a dark prison cell, the hope draining from his face. He frantically searches his backpack, desperate to find anything that could possibly help him survive this nightmare. He pulls out the only items he has: his phone with a shattered screen, a towel, and his wallet, just the mundane things he brought for work. A wave of hopelessness washes over him as he stares at the useless objects. In a fit of pure frustration, he shakes his bag, screaming that he should have been given some kind of special weapon or magical ability. A small black notebook tumbles out and lands on the stone floor with a soft thud. He stops, his anger turning to curiosity as he stares at the mysterious book. He kneels down to get a closer look at this unexpected object. The cover is adorned with a strange, cubed pattern and a title: Box of the Abyss. A tiny spark of hope ignites within him. Could this be the special item he was wishing for? He sits down and eagerly opens the book, a smile spreading across his face as he imagines the powerful magic it might hold. But as his eyes fall upon the first page, his expression instantly contorts into one of pure, unfiltered shock. He cries out in disbelief. It's just his old, embarrassing doodling notebook from elementary school, filled with childish drawings. A memory flashes back to his childhood, of a younger Suta obsessed with RPGs, constantly drawing his own weapons and monsters. He clutches the notebook, his face burning with shame. He can't understand how this embarrassing relic from his past ended up here. He wonders what the bizarre title on the cover could possibly mean, and if this old book has any use at all. His eyes catch a single cryptic sentence written on the inside cover: "Recite its name, and it will manifest." He frowns, trying to decipher its meaning. Does it refer to the ridiculous names he gave his childhood creations? He cringes just thinking about the silly, over-the-top names, feeling that he could never say them out loud without dying of embarrassment. He wrestles with himself, torn between his deep-seated shame and his desperate need for a miracle. With no other options left, He takes a deep breath, his face a mask of grim determination. He stretches out his hand and shouts a name from the book. Manifest! DS Infinite Thermos! In a brilliant flash of light, a metal thermos materializes out of thin air, hovering just above his hand. His eyes fly open in stunned amazement. It actually appeared. A wave of exhaustion hits him, the summoning having drained some of his energy, but he happily pours a cup of water, relieved to have a solution for his thirst. As he sips the water, he reflects on his younger self's creativity, thinking an infinite thermos is a rather plain ability and wondering about the DX part. He discovers he can make the thermos disappear and reappear just by saying its name again, but his experiments are interrupted by a voice from outside his cell. It is Fafnir, who has returned to inform him that his wait is over and orders him to come out. Suda looks up, startled by her sudden appearance, but he quickly gets to his feet. He is led out of his cell and into a grim stone chamber filled with various chains, hooks, and menacing tools. A cold shiver runs down his spine as he realizes with horror that he's been brought to a torture chamber. He glances nervously at Fafnir, who stands ready to begin her interrogation. She steps threateningly close, her expression serious as she informs him that she has many questions she needs him to answer. He gulps, his face flushing bright red at her close proximity. Despite the terrifying circumstances, one thought dominates his mind. She is incredibly cute. He marvels at the fact that such a pretty girl was hidden beneath that intimidating armor, feeling more nervous about her than the threat of torture. Fafnir notices him staring and sharply asks what he's looking at, causing him to flinch and stammer that it's nothing. She stares at him intently and demands his name, while Suda panics, telling himself to just treat her like a customer. He forces a smile and begins to introduce himself, but stops short. Instead of his real name, he blurts out a ridiculously long, nonsensical one, to which Fafnir simply replies that it's too long. He breathes a quiet sigh of relief, realizing he nearly revealed he was summoned, and tells her to just call him Suda. His mind races. He knows that one wrong word could cost him his life. He clenches his fist, understanding he needs more information if he's going to survive this ordeal. Taking a gamble, he agrees to tell her everything, but first asks why she is so determined to find the hero. Fafnir's eyes burn with intensity as she explains that heroes are their natural enemies, dangerous creatures who bring only destruction. She declares with unwavering resolve that it is her sacred duty to protect the demon realm by defeating the heroes at any cost. A chill runs down Suda's spine. He now fully understands the danger he's in and knows he must never reveal his true identity. Fafnir finishes her explanation and turns her gaze back to him, demanding to know who he really is. He takes a deep breath, preparing to deploy his most powerful weapon, his customer service skills. With a dramatic flourish, he announces that he will now reveal his true identity. He places a hand on his chest and proudly declares that he is a collector of strange and wondrous things. With a charming twinkle in his eye, he introduces himself as a jack-of-all-trades merchant. To prove it, he shouts another absurd name from his book, and a magical item flashes into existence, startling Fafnir. She raises her axe defensively, demanding to know what he just did, but he just offers a confident smile. He holds up the notebook, calmly explaining that he just pulled an item out of thin air, a special ability he possesses. He builds on his lie, claiming he was at the summoning site to deliver a rare magical stone required for the ritual. He adds with a dismissive wave that the precious stone was unfortunately shattered, but it's best not to dwell on it. With a wide-eyed, innocent expression, he asks if his explanation makes sense, leaving Fafnir looking thoughtful but still deeply suspicious. He holds his hopeful expression, waiting for her to accept his carefully constructed story. She leans in closer to inspect the book, asking if it's some kind of grimoire, and Suta's heart pounds from her proximity. His mind screams in panic, "She's too close!" He becomes so flustered that his mind goes completely blank, unable to form a coherent thought. He desperately forces himself to calm down, repeating his mantra, "She is just a customer." Regaining his composure, he explains that the item is called Your Heart Shouts in Full View, and it does exactly what its name implies. He launches into his sales pitch, claiming the book can reveal a person's deepest secrets, abilities, and true feelings. He opens the book to demonstrate, revealing a page that has magically filled itself out with all of Fafnir's personal information, like a school profile book. He stares in shock for a moment, amazed that his silly childhood creation actually has such a powerful ability. Before he can react, Fafnir snatches the book from him to examine the page for herself. She squints at the strange text, unable to understand it, and Suda realizes she can't read Japanese. Her eyes narrow in anger as she accuses him of trying to deceive her with a book of random scribbles. She presses the flat of her axe against his neck, her threat clear, and he can only offer a weak, nervous smile in return. She declares that she has heard enough and will now make it so his body is incapable of lying. In one swift motion, she swings her massive weapon. He gasps as a jagged, dark mark appears on his neck, a curse known as the Fool's Beheading. Fafnir explains that from now on, he is magically compelled to tell her nothing but the truth. She warns him that if he even attempts to lie, the mark will split his throat open. She leans in close, her eyes boring into his, and demands that they try again. He is completely trapped, unable to lie, but knowing the truth will get him killed. With no other choice, he uses the one truth he knows will work, revealing her deepest secret, her insecurity about her body odor. He looks at the floor, unable to meet her gaze as he speaks the words. Fafnir's face immediately flushes with shock and utter embarrassment. She stammers, demanding to know how he could possibly know something she has hidden from everyone, giving him the opening he needs. He proudly holds up the profile book, explaining that it reveals everything about her to him. He points to the specific line in the book that details her biggest worry. Fully in his element, he summons a small jar of cream, boldly announcing its horribly embarrassing name. Ein deodorant. She reacts with disgust at the name, and he quickly begs her not to mention it. He's hit with a mortifying flashback of his younger self, creating the item out of a childish fear. Shaking off the memory, he enters full customer service mode and presents the deodorant to her. He expertly lists all her secret anxieties about sweating in her heavy armor, his words hitting her like physical blows. He confidently holds out the cream, promising that this one simple product will solve all of her worries. Fafnir is completely stunned. Though she doesn't understand all his words, his confident presentation makes it sound too good to be true. He leans in with a charming smile and asks if it seems like a quality product, and she stares at the jar, utterly captivated. To close the deal, he offers it to her for free if she's willing to trust him, and she gasps, shocked by his generosity. She looks at the small jar, her expression torn between desperate hope and deep skepticism. She asks him why he would go to such lengths for her, a demon. He places a hand on his chest and declares with a proud smile that it's because he is a merchant. He passionately explains that his mission is to spread happiness with his products, regardless of whether his customer is human or demon. He finishes by stating that to him, she is simply a customer in need of assistance. She glances at the curse mark on his neck. It remains dormant, proving that he is, impossibly, telling the truth. Convinced, she finally agrees to believe him, and he holds out the deodorant, asking what she thinks. She accepts the offer, but with one surprising condition. She removes her heavy chest plate, sits down, and points to herself, ordering him to be the one to apply it. Suda lets out a scream of pure, unadulterated shock. She impatiently tells him to hurry up, threatening to assume he was lying if he hesitates, and he quickly agrees. He is a nervous wreck, his hands shaking uncontrollably at the thought of what he has to do. He takes a deep breath, trying to draw on his past work experience at a massage parlor to calm his nerves. With a shaky voice, he asks her where she wants him to apply it. She thinks for a moment before lifting her arm, exposing her armpit. Suda's heart feels like it's about to explode in his chest. She gives him a final stern warning not to touch anywhere else, or she will not forgive him. His mind is completely blank. With panic, he has absolutely no experience with anything like this. He cautiously applies the cream, and Fafnir flinches from the cold sensation. He immediately pulls his hand away, asking if something is wrong. She grits her teeth and tells him it's fine, ordering him to keep going. He continues, and she closes her eyes, a hopeful expression on her face. A sudden shiver runs through her body as a strange sensation overwhelms her, and she gasps that she will believe his story. Suda's face is bright red, but he reminds himself that this incredibly awkward situation is necessary for his survival. Fafnir tries to compose herself, her breath heavy as she tells him to clear his mind. After he finishes with one side, she takes a moment before instructing him to do the other. He is at his absolute limit, his mind refusing to empty as he struggles not to look. He hesitantly begins applying the cream to her other side. Her reaction is even more intense this time, the strange sensation spreading through her. As he works, his arm accidentally brushes against her chest, and he freezes. Through gritted teeth, Fafnir explains that he has just touched a very sensitive spot. He realizes with horror what he's done and panics, his mind short-circuiting. She is breathing heavily now, barely able to ask if he is quite done yet. He quickly finishes and pulls back, stammering apologies and insisting it was an accident as he notices the unpleasant smell is gone. She is so overwhelmed by the experience that her giant axe slips from her grasp and clatters to the floor. She catches her breath and finally admits that he was telling the truth all along. Suda looks down at the deodorant jar, completely baffled by her extreme reaction to the simple cream. Fafnir sits on the stool, hugging herself and breathing heavily, her entire body flushed. He glances at his notebook and finally reads the fine print. The deodorant also temporarily increases the user's sensitivity. He can't believe his luck, offering a silent thank you to his younger self for including such a bizarre but useful side effect. Back in his cell, Fafnir tells him his life will be spared. He cheekily reminds her that she was eager to execute him just minutes ago. She looks away with a pout, muttering that it was his own fault for being so suspicious. Suda can't help but let out a nervous laugh at her childish response. Fafnir glances back at him, a faint blush on her cheeks, her view of him clearly beginning to change. Still standing outside his cell, Fafnir holds the deodorant and offers him a sincere, though slightly embarrassed, thank you. She then turns to leave, simply saying she will see him later, leaving Suda confused. He watches from behind the bars as she walks away, clutching the strange jar of cream. Once she is gone, he collapses to the floor, finally able to breathe a sigh of relief, knowing he has survived for now. Meanwhile, Fafnir walks alone down a long corridor, her mind lost in thought. She remembers all the humans she has ever encountered, their faces twisted in hatred as they screamed for the death of all demons. But then she thinks of Suda, and his strange declaration that he doesn't care if a customer is human or demon. She looks down at the small jar in her hand, pondering the bizarre human who gave it to her. Her stern expression softens, replaced by a look of deep confusion and internal conflict. A single tear escapes and rolls down her cheek as she wonders why this human is so different from all the others. Back in his cell, Suda lies on the floor, studying his two mysterious notebooks. He examines Fafnir's profile page more closely and discovers a heart-shaped meter labeled favorability, currently at 20%. He sits up, puzzled by this new feature. What exactly is favorability? His mind flashes back to his elementary school days when he would daydream about an item that could reveal what people truly thought of him. He remembers his first crush, a kind girl who always praised his imaginative drawings. Her compliments and sweet smile made him fall for her in a simple, innocent first love. He then recalls the day he discovered the popular profile books the girls in his class used to share their secrets. He secretly listened as his crush's friend asked if she had feelings for him. His heart shattered when he heard her deny it, calling him an immature boy who just draws dumb pictures. The shock of learning her true feelings was a devastating blow to his young heart. It was that heartbreak that inspired him to create the Your Heart Shouts in Full View item, a tool to see people's true thoughts and feelings. He grits his teeth, realizing that painful moment was the origin of his deep-seated anxiety around women. By junior high, the notebook was a bad memory he sealed away in a black box in his closet. Now, lying on the cold dungeon floor, he holds up the notebooks, realizing his black box has become the box of the abyss. He knows that no matter how embarrassing it is, he must use this strange power to survive in this new world. He remembers his manager's final words, that he was sent here to save this world, but he has no idea how. He sits up, a new determination in his eyes. His first goal is to find a way home, which means he needs allies and information. He decides his first step must be to raise Fafnir's favorability score, but as he speaks the words aloud, she appears at his cell. He yelps in surprise, and she scoffs, saying it's not her fault he didn't notice her standing there. He takes a moment to compose himself as he thinks about the demon captain who holds his fate in her hands. He nervously glances at his book, confirming that her favorability is still a meager 20%. He reflects on her personality, thinking she's like a student council president, responsible, dedicated, and surprisingly cute. A blush creeps across his face as he remembers the intensely awkward deodorant incident from the day before. He shakes his head to clear the thought, but Fafnir catches his strange behavior and asks what's wrong. His mind wanders for a second, and he's horrified to see her favorability drop to 0% as she accuses him of plotting something. He panics as the curse on his neck begins to crackle, knowing he has to say something truthful, fast. He remembers her warning. He is physically incapable of telling her a lie. He touches the painful mark, feeling completely trapped by the curse. Forced to speak the truth, he stammers that he was just thinking about how he wants to increase her trust in him as a customer. He inwardly curses himself, frustrated by his inability to talk to women without making a fool of himself. Fafnir accepts his bizarre explanation since the curse didn't activate, and she orders a guard to open his cell. The heavy door swings open, and she gestures for him to come out. With a serious expression, she announces that she and the Demon Lord have decided what to do with him. A massive iron ball is rolled into the room. The next moment, Suda finds himself shackled to the heavy ball and chain. He cries out in frustration. After everything, she still doesn't trust him at all. He struggles to drag the weight behind him as Fafnir impatiently tells him to hurry. He begs her to remove it, promising not to run, but she flatly refuses, stating that it is the rule. She sighs, clearly annoyed with how slow he is moving. As they walk through a grand hallway, Suda looks out a window at the perpetually gloomy sky. He remarks on how dark the castle is, even though he assumes it's daytime. Fafnir explains that the demon realm is always shrouded in thick clouds, blocking out most of the sun. She stops abruptly, announcing that they have arrived at their destination. She gestures to a simple but clean room, informing him that this will be his quarters from now on. Then, she points at him and declares his new official role. He will be working as her personal servant. He yelps in protest, and she explains that this is the perfect solution to keep an eye on him. He nervously asks what his duties will entail, and she vaguely replies that he will assist her with various tasks. Suda looks uneasy, his mind racing with all the possible things that could mean. His attention is drawn to a small stack of books on a shelf, and he feels a surge of excitement at the chance to learn about this world. But his hopes are dashed when he opens a book and discovers he can't read the strange language. However, his eyes widen in shock as he recognizes a face in one of the illustrations. It's his old supermarket manager. He asks Fafnir who the woman is, and she identifies her as Nostra the Sage, a legendary figure. Fafnir explains that Nostra was a famous sage with immense magical power and the unique ability to travel between worlds. She also left behind a prophecy, one that foretold that a hero would be summoned when the world was in crisis. Suda is dumbfounded. His manager was a legendary world-traveling sage all along? Fafnir continues, explaining that the prophecy specified the exact cathedral for the summoning, which is why her army was there. She adds with a touch of pride that the battle was an easy victory, as most of the humans had already fled with the heroes. She leans over his shoulder to get a better look at the book, and Suda becomes acutely aware of how close she is. He notices her pleasant scent and finds himself captivated by her long eyelashes. His entire body begins to tremble. He has never been this close to such a beautiful girl before, from sheer nervousness, and Fafnir asks him what's wrong. In his panicked movement, his hand accidentally bumps squarely against her chest. His brain short-circuits, and the only thought he can form is the word marshmallow. Fafnir lets out a startled yelp, her face flushing bright red as she covers herself. He immediately prostrates himself on the floor, bowing repeatedly and shouting apologies. She furiously accuses him of doing it on purpose, and he sees her favorability has plummeted to -20. In his panic, he denies it by saying he wasn't trying to touch her, which she misinterprets, causing her favorability to drop to -40. He frantically waves his hands, desperate to correct his disastrous mistake. He blurts out that he would never refuse to touch someone as cute as her, leaving Fafnir completely stunned. Her hands clench into tight fists at her sides, her knuckles white. "Who are you calling cute?" she roars, raising her axe as Suda screams in terror. She swings her weapon wildly around the room in a flustered rage. In her tantrum, she accidentally smashes the room's only oil lamp, plunging them into darkness. She lowers her axe, deciding they need a new lamp before continuing their argument. Suda sees his chance to salvage the situation and grabs his notebook, confident he has an item for this. This is his opportunity to reverse his abysmal -40 favorability score. He steels himself, muttering that she's not a girl, she's a customer. With renewed purpose, he shouts, "Manifest, sun, sun!" A small floating sun with a goofy face appears, bathing the room in a warm light, and Fafnir stares in awe. She is drawn to the light, a feeling of deep peace washing over her as she steps closer. Her eyes sparkle with childlike wonder, completely mesmerized by the glowing orb. Suda is surprised to feel her long, scaly tail unconsciously wrap around his leg. She seems to be in a trance, babbling happily as she basks in the warmth. He watches her, amazed by how unguarded and happy she suddenly seems. He remembers seeing a lizard sunbathing at a pet shop where he once worked and makes a connection. Dragons are like reptiles. He recalls the shop owner explaining that reptiles need regular sunlight to stay healthy. He asks the mesmerized Fafnir if this is her first time truly experiencing sunlight. She snaps out of her daze, startled, and he presses on, asking if she's been feeling tired or losing her appetite. He reminds her of the lack of sun in the demon realm, and she reluctantly admits he might be right. Now in his element, he launches into a perfect sales pitch about the health benefits of sunlight, from vitamin D to serotonin. Fafnir admits that she doesn't understand half of his complicated words, but as she gazes at the warm, comforting light, she can feel that what he's saying is somehow amazing. She asks for a simpler explanation, wondering if the item will boost her stats, and he quickly agrees. He nervously touches the curse on his neck, hoping that health counts as a stat so he isn't technically lying. He then notices Fafnir is beginning to sweat heavily from the intense warmth. She closes her eyes, enjoying the pleasant heat radiating from the magical sun. Thinking on his feet, Suda explains that sweating is a positive sign of her metabolism increasing. A mischievous idea strikes him, and he adds that some people even take off their clothes to sunbathe for maximum effect. He continues with a sly smile, mentioning that he's heard it's most effective when done in private. Taking his advice literally, Fafnir immediately begins to take off her shirt, causing Suda to scream in panic. As her clothes fall away, he frantically asks what she's doing, and she calmly replies that he told her to. She sits on the bed, covering herself with a sheet, and explains that she cannot appear before the demon lord in poor health. Her reptilian eyes gleam with fierce determination as she declares her need to improve her physical and mental state. She looks up at the floating sun and demands that he hit her with even more light, and he can only stammer in agreement. He holds the sun over her, its goofy, hand-drawn face looking down. Fafnir lets out a sharp breath, completely overwhelmed by the intense warmth. She sighs in pure bliss, murmuring how good the heat feels on her skin. She can feel the warmth spreading deep within her body, as if it's purging all impurities. Suda sweats from the heat, glad she's happy, but flustered that he couldn't refuse her bold request. He tries to just close his eyes and aim the sun at her as she continues to murmur in contentment. She then asks him to aim the light lower, towards the base of her tail, causing his face to turn bright red. As he adjusts the sun's position, she lets out a sharp gasp of pleasure and begs him to warm her even more. The light intensifies, and she continues to bask in its powerful, comforting rays. She breathes out in pure bliss, marveling at how incredibly warm it is. Suda wipes sweat from his forehead as the small room rapidly heats up like a sauna. He wonders what else he can do to keep her satisfied and improve his precarious situation. Fafnir suddenly breaks the silence, quietly apologizing for something. She sits up, her body in the bed completely soaked in sweat from the intense heat. Suda's eyes go wide, and he quickly stammers that it's perfectly fine. He frantically flips through his notebook, desperately searching for an item to deal with all the moisture. He finds the perfect solution, a drawing of a lumpy, water-sucking sponge. "Manifest! Water-sucking sponge!" he shouts, and the strange item appears in his hand. He holds up the sponge, explaining to Fafnir that it will soak up all the sweat. She turns her back to him and quietly gives him permission to proceed. Suda is incredibly nervous, his heart pounding in his chest as he prepares to touch her again. He gulps, trying to ignore the awkwardness of the situation as he gently dabs her back with the sponge. Fafnir turns around, her eyes wide with surprise at how quickly the sponge works. She exclaims that it's amazing and that all her sweat is completely gone, but her excitement turns to concern as she looks at Suda. She asks what happened to him. He has suddenly become shriveled and desiccated. He collapses to the floor with a thud, and Fafnir rushes to his side in alarm. He had completely forgotten the item's dangerous side effect. It absorbs moisture from anything it touches, including living beings. His last conscious thought is a mortifying memory of why he created the sponge in the first place, before he passes out. A short while later, Fafnir is dressed and looks down at him, feeling completely refreshed and revitalized. Suda, having recovered by drinking from his infinite thermos, hears a ding from his notebook. He checks the book and sees his favorability has jumped by 50 points, bringing him back into positive numbers. He breathes a sigh of relief as Fafnir watches him, a thoughtful expression on her face. A brilliant idea suddenly strikes her. Suda looks up, startled, as she excitedly announces a new plan for his servant work. She points at him dramatically and declares that he will open a shop right here in the castle. With a bright smile, she explains that his abilities could be used to help out other demons. Suda feels a wave of fear as he imagines trying to sell his useless items to a group of intimidating monsters. But he looks down at his notebook, and a new strategy begins to form in his mind. He looks up at Fafnir, ready to make a counter-proposal. He suggests that instead of him trying to find customers on his own, she could promote the items he's used so far to her friends and colleagues. She looks confused, asking why she should do that, and he replies with a charming smile that it's because she's famous. She looks away, considering his request, and says she won't make any promises. But she then turns back with a confident smirk, adding that she might do it if she feels like it. He thanks her profusely, overjoyed that his plan is working. She announces that she's heading next door, leaving Suda confused. She explains, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world, that she lives right next to him. She shows him a mental layout of the rooms, revealing his storeroom is directly adjacent to her captain's office. As she leaves, she warns him not to get any funny ideas, promising to come running if she hears anything suspicious. He sits on his chair, flustered. He wanted to get closer to her, but he didn't expect to be her next-door neighbor. He watches her go, noticing the soft, happy smile on her face as she carries the sun into her room. The moment she enters, a playful voice calls out her name. Before she can react, a girl with wolf-like ears pounces on her, grabbing her chest. Fafnir smacks her on the head, telling her to control herself. The wolf girl, Ugaruru, simply laughs and rubs her head. Fafnir continues to scold her, but Ugaruru's attention is already elsewhere. She points towards Suda's room, excitedly asking if she can play with the human Fafnir brought back. Sometime later, Suda and Fafnir are setting up his makeshift shop. They lay out a cloth and place his few items on display, preparing for the grand opening. Suda sits with his arms outstretched, proudly announcing that his shop is officially open for business. He sighs, realizing he has very little stock to sell, but he's interrupted by his first customer. It's Fafnir, who looks curiously at his strange collection of goods. She points to a sparkling gem, and he launches into a sales pitch for his diamond, a perpetually shining stone. She is completely unimpressed, stating that it's just a rock, and he has no choice but to agree. She then asks about a bunch of bananas with creepy faces, and he indically explains they are arrow-eye bananas. Fafnir just stares at him blankly, repeating the bizarre name. Having seen enough, she throws the items aside, declaring them all to be useless garbage. He bows his head in defeat, admitting that all of his one-star items are basically trash. He looks at his notebook and sees that his creations are all assigned rarity levels, indicated by stars. He realizes that as a merchant level 1, he can only summon one-star items and needs to sell them to level up. He groans in frustration, wondering how he can possibly sell this junk as Fafnir watches him with concern. Suddenly, Fafnir's eyes widen as she senses something approaching at high speed. A playful cry echoes through the hall as a blur of motion zips past her. She turns just in time to see the cause of the commotion. Suda looks up from his pile of useless items, completely bewildered. The dust settles to reveal Ugaruru sitting triumphantly on top of him. Her fluffy ears twitch as she looks down at the pinned human. "My bad," she says with a grin, while Suda struggles beneath her. Fafnir furiously demands to know what is happening, but Ugaruru just asks to play with her again. She finally gets off him, and Suda sits up, coughing and catching his breath. She gives him a wide, fanged smile, and happily introduces herself. This is Ugaruru, a soldier from the close combat unit, and his first real customer. Fafnir asks what she wants, and Ugaruru reminds her that Fafnir was the one who told her about the shop. With a huge, excited grin, she announces that she came here to play. Suda quickly opens his notebook, ready to learn everything he can about his new potential customer. He reads Ugaruru's profile, noting her cheerful but highly competitive personality, so different from Fafnir's. He marvels at the variety of demons in this world, but a more pressing thought fills his mind as he blushes. Are all the demon girls here this cute? Ugaruru and Fafnir continue their conversation, their contrasting personalities on full display. Ugaruru then leans in very close to Suda, startling him as she calls out his name. She bends over, right in his face, and asks if he wants to play with her, leaving him completely flustered. She pouts, complaining that he plays with Fafnir but not her, prompting a furious denial from the dragon captain. She gives him a puzzled look, genuinely confused as to why he wouldn't want to play. An idea suddenly sparks in Suda's mind. With a confident glint in his eye, he asks if he's allowed to use his items during their game. Ugaruru agrees, but asks if she can use one more item in addition to those on display, a condition Suda accepts. She cheers, excited for the game to begin, as Fafnir warns Suda that she won't hold back. Ugaruru crouches low, ready to spring, and reminds him that a merchant can't refuse a customer's request. Suda smiles, seeing this as the perfect chance to demonstrate and sell all his useless items at once. He adds that he was hoping for a chance to talk to more demons anyway. Fafnir is surprised by his sudden confidence, but the curse on his neck remains quiet, proving his sincerity. A small, almost unnoticeable smile graces her lips. She gives him one last warning to be careful, and he promises to do his best. Fafnir sets an hourglass on a pedestal to time their game. She asks if they are ready, and both Suda and Ugaruru eagerly confirm. The moment the game starts, Ugaruru lunges forward with blinding speed. Fafnir cries out his name in alarm, fearing for his safety. Ugaruru's sharp claws slash through the air, aimed directly at his face. But Suda dodges at the last possible second, moving with an impossible burst of speed. He is now wearing a pair of sleek, futuristic sneakers. Ugaruru lands gracefully, amazed that a human could move so fast, and asks if it's because of his items. He grins, impressed by her quick thinking. He proudly presents the Lightspeed Gear Express shoes, which allow the wearer to run at the speed of light. He launches into a full sales pitch, boasting that the shoes make travel time a thing of the past. He remembers inventing them as a child out of jealousy for the faster, more popular kids in his class. Knowing Ugaruru is competitive and prides herself on her speed, he plans to beat her at her own game to prove his worth as a merchant. He reminds himself that this isn't just a game of tag, it's a product, demonstration. He confidently boasts that with these shoes, he's faster than anyone, which immediately triggers Ugaruru's competitive nature. She puffs out her cheeks in anger, offended by his claim, and he quickly tries to backtrack. But it's too late. She roars that nobody is faster than her and explodes after him with incredible speed. As he pulls away, she shouts that it's unfair for him to suddenly get faster. He pants, realizing that was a close call. Her kick would have been devastating if it had landed. To his horror, she gets even faster, forcing him to push his shoes to the next level. He pushes them too far and loses control, rocketing away in an uncontrollable spin. Ugaruru stops, watching in confusion as he vanishes in a blur of motion. Suda feels a soft, cushioned impact as he crashes into something. He has flown directly into Fafnir, sending them both to the ground with his face buried in her chest. Fafnir's face flushes a deep red, her mouth wide open in pure shock. Mortified beyond belief, Suda realizes where he is and frantically tries to get up. In his panic, his hands flail and land right back in the same spot, causing Fafnir to yell. They both erupt into a frenzy of apologies and flustered accusations. A dark shadow falls over them. It's Ugaruru, and she is radiating pure fury. She screams that those belong to her, prompting Fafnir to yell back that they don't belong to anyone. With a predatory glint in her eyes, Ugaruru lunges for Suda and declares checkmate. The last grain of sand falls through the hourglass, and Suda stares in disbelief, realizing he's lost the game. He blinks in confusion, a question mark appearing over his head. He looks up to see Ugaruru standing over him, but she hasn't tagged him to end the game. She asks why he isn't finishing the game, then explains with a grin that simply winning would be no fun. She leans in close, a sly look on her face, and asks if he wants to know what it truly means to be her playmate. Her expression darkens as she promises to do all sorts of fun and painful things to him without ever letting him escape. Suda is utterly terrified, which only seems to delight Ugaruru more. She sits on top of him again, purring that she wants to play more and that there are far more interesting games than tag. She whispers that she can't wait to show him all the fun things she has in mind. He forces a nervous laugh, his mind racing to find a way to distract her and run for his life. He tries to squirm away, but she catches him instantly. She playfully taps his chest with a sharp, pointed claw. She tells him she can read him like a book, easily guessing his every move just by looking at his eyes. She taps his lips, adding that his sweet-talking won't work on her. With a wicked grin, she asks if he'll let her catch him or if they should have some more fun before time runs out. Suddenly, Ugaruru leaps off him. Fafnir watches from a distance, sighing as she recognizes Ugaruru's bad habit of getting too carried away. She knows that once Ugaruru gets this excited, she loses all restraint and becomes impossible to stop. Suda looks up at his opponent, feeling a sense of utter doom. He's pinned down again, his heart pounding. What can he possibly do? He only has one use of his speed shoes left and a pile of completely useless trash items. Ugaruru is now kneading his chest like a cat, purring that she can't hold on much longer. Fafnir shouts at her to stop, but Ugaruru simply tells her to be quiet. Suda's mind is spinning. He can't think straight with her playful cat-like voice in his ear. Then it hits him. Her voice, her movements. It's just like a cat. He realizes that lions are essentially just big cats, which means he might have a way to fight back. There's no time to hesitate. He knows he has to act now. "Giving up?" Ugaruru asks. "No," he replies, a new fire in his eyes. He declares that his product demonstration is not over yet. While still pinned, he uses his last bit of freedom to shout, "Manifest! Arrow Eye Banana!" The bunch of bananas with silly faces appears in a flash. He quickly shoves one into his own mouth. His eyes instantly transform into the droopy, absurd arrow eyes. Ugaruru bursts into laughter at the ridiculous sight, completely distracted. While she's laughing, he summons his next item, the Diamok. The brilliant, shining gem appears right in her face, dazzling her with its intense light. As she's momentarily blinded, he asks what will happen if she can't catch him. Both Ugaruru and Fafnir are stunned by his unexpected and bizarre strategy. He channels his past experience, declaring that if she's a big cat, she must have the same weaknesses. He then unleashes his secret technique, learned from his time at a cat cafe. But slaps. Ugaruru yelps in surprise as he begins to rhythmically pat the base of her tail. He remembers his old manager teaching him this special technique for calming down cats. The manager had explained that the area is full of sensitive nerve endings and patting it can be very pleasant for felines. He starts with a light, steady tapping. Ugaruru lets out a surprised "nya" as the strange sensation hits her. He occasionally mixes in a gentle, soothing rub. Her strength begins to drain away, her aggressive energy replaced by soft purrs and meows. As he continues, he notices her hips starting to rise instinctively, just as his manager had described. She begs him to stop, tears welling in her eyes as she says she can't take any more. He ignores her pleas and increases the intensity, declaring that now it's time to get rough, and she cries out, completely overwhelmed. With one last scratch, Suda's game comes to an end, leaving the beastkin soldier Ugaruru completely relaxed and purring blissfully on the ground. But he isn't finished. With intense focus, Suda prepares to unleash his ultimate cat cafe manager skills, ready to deliver the perfect neck scritches. Suddenly, an angry smack cracks the back of his head. It's Fafnir, her face a storm of flustered fury as she demands to know if he hasn't caused enough trouble. She grabs the panicking Suda by his collar and points to an hourglass, yelling that his demonstration time ran out ages ago. He can only stare in shock, admitting he was so lost in his work that he completely lost track of time. Fafnir leans in impossibly close, her face red with frustration, telling him his actions didn't look like a merchant's demonstration at all. Suda sweats, completely overwhelmed by the beautiful dragon captain's proximity. With shocking strength, she lifts him completely off the ground by his shirt. He yelps in surprise, dangling in the air as Fafnir begins to carry him away. Even while being carried, Suda tries to explain himself with a sheepish grin, insisting that he was just so deep in his customer service mode that he lost all sense of his surroundings. With a sigh of pure exasperation, Fafnir unceremoniously drops him. He lands in a dazed heap on the ground. She looks down at him, her anger finally melting away into genuine concern. With a slight blush, she quietly tells him not to make her worry like that again. Just then, a fully recovered Ugaruru latches onto Suda from behind, purring with absolute contentment. Seeing this, Fafnir relaxes, concluding that he must be all right after all. Ugaruru snuggles against him with a satisfied grin, telling him that was the most fun she's ever had playing, her eyes sparkling with pure excitement. She hugs him even tighter, eagerly asking to play with him like that again. Suda's face twists in pure panic, realizing he's just created an incredibly strong and enthusiastic new playmate. As Suda freaks out, a dark shadow falls over him. Fafnir stands behind them, her aura practically smoldering with jealousy at the sight of someone else clinging to her servant. From a nearby doorway, a new figure watches the chaos unfold as Fafnir yells at the bewildered Suda, who is still trapped in Ugaruru's happy embrace. The mysterious observer is a young, hooded person holding a staff, watching the strange commotion with a calm and curious smile. The situation only gets worse as Fafnir interrogates Suda, demanding to know what kind of bizarre skill he used on her soldier. He can only stammer that it was just a technique taught by his old store manager. Later that night, Suda lies awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling. The day's overwhelming events replay in his mind, robbing him of any chance of sleep. A shadow suddenly falls across his bed. He turns his head and sees a mysterious hooded figure standing silently beside him. The figure leans down, their face just inches from his. He can now make out their light hair, pointed ears, and sharp reptilian eyes staring intently at him in the darkness. His eyes fly open in absolute terror. He lets out a massive scream that echoes through the halls. In the next room, Fafnir is jolted awake by the noise. She sits bolt upright in her bed, wondering what that horrible sound was. Recognizing the voice, she throws off her covers and rushes out of her room, calling Suda's name. Fafnir bursts into the room to an absolutely bizarre sight. The intruder is pinning Suda down with a pillow, trying to muffle his screams while desperately insisting they won't hurt him. She and a crowd of other demons, woken by the noise, stare from the doorway in complete and utter shock. The hooded figure looks over, sweating nervously, caught red-handed. Fafnir's shock quickly morphs into pure annoyance. She yells at both of them, demanding to know what in the world they are doing causing such a ruckus. A little later, everyone is gathered in Fafnir's office. The dragon captain sits at her desk, looking exhausted and irritated as she demands an explanation. Suda, looking just as drained, admits he doesn't know what happened either. He begins his story explaining that one moment he was trying to fall asleep, and the next, this person was just there. The hooded figure politely introduces herself as Patty, a soldier from the Transportation Help Unit. She offers a small, shy smile, saying it's a pleasure to meet them. Her large, unique eyes and small fangs give her a distinct and surprisingly cute appearance. Suda introduces himself in return, thinking to himself that her ability to simply appear in his room must be an incredibly powerful and rare teleportation skill. Fafnir cuts straight to the chase, sternly asking Patty why she was in Suda's bed and if she was there to resolve a certain matter they had discussed. Patty flinches, her guilt obvious. The captain insists that since Patty caused this mess, she has a responsibility to explain everything. With a nervous glance at Suda, Patty quietly agrees. Taking a shaky breath, Patty makes a stunning confession. Her one true goal is to become a proper, full-fledged succubus. Suda is puzzled by this. He muses aloud that since succubuses are famous for their irresistible charm, he can't imagine what special requirement is needed to officially become one. To answer his question, Patty lifts her cloak and shirt, revealing a beautiful, tattoo-like symbol on her lower stomach. She explains that this mark must shine, but hers is the only one in the entire castle that remains dark. Back in the office, she continues her explanation, telling them that according to succubus lore, the symbol will only light up when a person's deepest desires are fulfilled. She turns to Suda, blushing deeply as she struggles to find the words to explain the very specific desire she needs fulfilled. Finally, she blurts it out. She needs to be kissed. Suda's jaw drops in complete and utter shock. He is a mess of confusion, understanding the part about the symbol but failing to see how a kiss is the answer. or why she came to him for it. Patty can only apologize over and over in her embarrassment. Patty explains that her friends told her a kiss was the key, and she tearfully wonders if she only chose Suda because he was the only human available. She looks down in shame, admitting that even after sneaking into his room, she got too scared at the last moment and had no idea what to do. Suda gently tries to understand, asking if she hesitated because he's a human, wanting to know what made her so afraid. Patty looks away sadly, remembering how she got the completely wrong idea about him at the training grounds earlier. She explains how she witnessed him confidently handling both Fafnir and Ugururu, completely misinterpreting his panicked interactions as the smooth confidence of an expert. Fafnir turns red, mortified by this description. Patty finishes her story with sparkling eyes, saying his actions made her believe he was an expert in these matters. Suda waves his hands frantically, insisting it was all a huge misunderstanding. Hearing his denial, her hopeful expression crumbles into disappointment. Her shoulders slump as she quietly asks if that's really the case. While she's distracted, Suda quickly checks her profile in his magical notebook, which shows her favorability is at 0 and reveals her deep insecurity about her dream. He closes the book, feeling a strong, undeniable urge to help the troubled girl. Fafnir, sensing the mood, asks Patty to go make some tea for them. Suda flips through his notebook, looking at all the items he's designed. He smiles sheepishly to himself, forced to admit that he has absolutely 0 personal experience with romance. The reality of his inexperience hits him like a tidal wave. He grits his teeth, blushing and panicking internally about how he could possibly help her when he knows nothing himself. Fafnir walks up behind him and peeks over his shoulder, asking if he's found any useful items for dating. Startled, he quickly hides the book and insists he's found nothing. Her expression turns serious and surprisingly gentle. She looks at Suda and makes a formal request, asking him to please lend his help to Patty. Fafnir explains that for a very long time, Patty has felt ashamed of her own immaturity, a feeling that has become a heavy weight on her heart. Her voice fills with sadness as she continues, saying that Patty's once bright and cheerful smile has completely vanished because of this terrible burden. With a look of deep sincerity, Fafnir tells Suda that while it may be pathetic for a captain to beg her servant, she believes he is the only one who can bring back Patty's smile. She looks at him with tears welling in her eyes, her desperate plea revealing just how much she cares for her subordinate, and the weight of her request settles heavily on Suda. The three of them now sit together, trying to figure out a plan. A flustered Patty explains that she's read there are many things to consider for a kiss, like the speed and the angle. As they sip their tea, Suda says he thinks he understands the basics, but admits he is also unsure. Fafnir suggests that perhaps Patty is simply overthinking everything. Patty suddenly turns to Fafnir with a brilliant idea, asking how the captain herself would give a kiss. Fafnir chokes on her tea in pure shock. A blushing Fafnir waves her hands frantically, exclaiming that there's no way she could do that. But Patty insists, saying that if she could just see a proper example, she's sure she could do it too. Patty looks from Fafnir to Sauda, the unspoken suggestion hanging heavy in the air. Realizing he's just been volunteered for a demonstration, Suda can only manage a weak, nervous smile. The reality of the suggestion finally hits him. He immediately panics, waving his hands wildly as he insists it is absolutely, completely impossible. Fafnir completely misunderstands his panic as a personal insult. She grabs him by the shirt, yelling and demanding to know if he's saying she isn't good enough for him. Patty sees the chaos she's created and apologizes, thinking she must have said something strange to upset her captain so much. Fafnir immediately lets go of Suda and turns to Patty with a soft expression, reassuring the sad-looking succubus that she didn't mean it and asking her not to be upset. Her resolve hardened, she grabs a terrified Suda once more and declares she's going to do it. He tries to protest, but she cuts him off, demanding to know why he's so against the idea. Pushed to his absolute limit, Suda finally blurts out the truth, his face completely red. He shouts that just being this close to someone as beautiful as her makes his heart race, making a kiss utterly impossible. Fafnir freezes, stunned silent by his powerful and unexpected compliment. Her entire face flushes a deep red as she shyly whispers for him to please be gentle. Now it's Suda's turn to be stunned. Fafnir, realizing what she just said, looks mortified but refuses to back down from her declaration. They stare at each other, both flustered but determined. Fafnir reminds Suda that this is just pretend, and he nervously agrees, adding that she also promised to help him. Patty watches them from the couch, her eyes sparkling with hope and excitement, ready to learn from their example. Fafnir mutters that she isn't just doing this because of Patty's expectant gaze. Fafnir puts her hands on Suda's shoulders, her expression a mix of determination and extreme nervousness. Even for pretend, this is a massive hurdle for her. Suda, equally nervous, asks her again to be gentle. They slowly lean closer to each other, their faces just inches apart. The air grows thick with tension as their hearts pound in their chests. From her seat on the couch, Patty watches with wide eyes, her own heart thumping in anticipation of the big moment. Their silhouettes draw nearer and nearer, about to meet in the middle. The moment is almost here. But at the very last second, Fafnir's nerve breaks. She panics and headbutts Suda, sending him flying backward as she shouts that she just can't do it. As Suda collapses, she yells out in embarrassment that she's never kissed anyone before. Patty looks on, completely shocked by her captain's sudden confession. A few moments later, an incredibly awkward silence fills the room. Suda and Fafnir sit on opposite ends of the couch, unable to even look at each other, as she mumbles an apology. Patty realizes her powerful captain is just as inexperienced as she is. Mortified, Fafnir yells at her to be quiet before pointing at Suda and declaring it's his turn to try with Patty. As he panics about embarrassing himself, an idea strikes Suda like a bolt of lightning. He realizes what he needs to do. If only he could get rid of his shame. A brilliant smile spreads across his face. He turns to the girls, exclaiming that if he just throws away his shame, it will work. He confidently reaches for his magical notebook. With a confident flourish, he summons his newest creation. He presents a simple spray bottle, announcing it as the Shame Blower Spray. He immediately slips into his salesman persona, asking if they've ever regretted not being able to say what they truly felt because they were too embarrassed. His words strike a deep chord with Patty. She looks at him with a soft, thoughtful expression, clearly relating to the feeling he just described. Suda continues his pitch, explaining that the spray contains a special ingredient to stimulate the brain and boost confidence, even sharing a story about how it helped him with stage fright. His persuasive speech works perfectly. Both Fafnir and Patty are completely mesmerized, their eyes sparkling with interest as Fafnir admits she really wants to try it. Though still a little doubtful, she asks if she can test the spray. Suda gives her his best customer service smile and happily hands her the bottle. As she takes it, he quickly glances at the instructions in his notebook, noting the warning: spray only once a day, and be careful not to use too much. But Fafnir is too eager to listen. She immediately starts spraying it all over her face, again and again. Suda yells in panic, telling her to stop. He points frantically at the fine print, crying out that there's a caution. It says, if you apply too much, you may lose all shame and become too bold. Suda and Patty stare nervously at Fafnir, who has finally stopped spraying. Patty cautiously asks her captain how she is feeling. Fafnir slowly turns, her eyes wide and sparkling with a strange, newfound confidence. She suddenly reaches out and grabs Suda's hand. A bold, determined grin spreads across her face. "Soda!" she declares loudly. "Right now, pretend or not, I feel like I can do it for real." His face turns pale with terror. Patty jumps up, trying to stop her captain and pleading for her to calm down. But Fafnir is on a mission, announcing she is going to kiss him before the effect wears off. Suda finds himself backed into a corner with nowhere to run. He holds up his hands defensively, his heart hammering in his chest. Fafnir leans in close, her expression unyielding. She asks him in a low, serious voice to make up his mind like a man. Her intense gaze softens just a little, revealing a hint of vulnerability beneath the magical boldness. She quietly asks if he hates the idea of doing it with her. Suda is utterly speechless. He's trapped between her unexpected question and his own pounding heart, his face completely red. Seeing his hesitation, Fafnir puffs out her cheeks in a cute, determined pout, absolutely refusing to back down. The moment is frozen in time. Fafnir, empowered by the spray, holds her pout, waiting for an answer, while Suda remains utterly and completely stunned. He pulls back slightly, his mind racing. He knows that even though she is asking, this entire situation is just not right. Finding his voice, Suda looks at Fafnir with sincere eyes. telling her that something as important as a kiss should be shared with someone you truly care about. His heartfelt words shatter the spray's effect entirely. Fafnir's boldness melts away, replaced by pure, stunned emotion as her face flushes and her heart pounds with 1,000 conflicting feelings. Suda tries to soften the moment with a nervous smile, explaining that everyone says a first kiss is special, and it would be a waste to share it with someone like him. His attempt to be gentle completely backfires. A new wave of emotion washes over Fafnir as she squeezes her eyes shut and yells at him not to play with her feelings like that. As Fafnir has her emotional outburst, Patty watches from the side, gasping in surprise as a bright light suddenly begins to shine. Fafnir is now surrounded by a powerful, shimmering aura of pure emotion. Patty is in awe, thinking how incredible it is that her strong captain could become so adorably bold and flustered. Witnessing the spray's incredible power, a spark of hope ignites in Patty. She looks at the bottle, thinking with newfound determination that with this item, even she can do it. While Fafnir is still grabbing his collar, Suda hears a distinct spraying sound from behind him. He whips his head around in alarm, shouting Patty's name as he sees her pointing the shame blower spray directly at her own face. Before he can stop her, she sprays it over and over again. Suda cries out in panic, telling her she's using way too much. As Patty throws off her cloak, a sense of dread washes over him. He realizes that if a succubus uses that much of a shame-removing spray, the results could be completely unpredictable. Fafnir and Suda both stop, sensing a sudden and dramatic shift in the room's atmosphere coming from Patty. But instead of becoming bold, Patty's face crumbles, and she suddenly bursts into tears, crying her heart out. Both Suda and Fafnir are completely stunned by this unexpected reaction. She's crying? The spray's effect on Fafnir seems to vanish as concern for her subordinate takes over. She rushes to Patty's side, asking what's wrong and if she's in any pain. Fafnir gently asks her to stop crying, but Patty only cries harder, insisting that she won't stop. Suda and Fafnir are completely baffled. This wasn't supposed to happen at all. Through her sobs, Patty finally lets out all her pent-up feelings, wailing that she's been holding back her tears and trying so hard for so long, but she just doesn't want to try anymore. A look of sudden understanding dawns on Fafnir's face. She realizes the spray didn't just remove shame. It destroyed the emotional walls Patty had built, revealing the deep sadness she'd been hiding. In a flashback, we see Patty's lonely struggle. She worked tirelessly to master her magic, dreaming of serving alongside her idol, Captain Fafnir, even as other succubuses mocked her. She tried to convince herself it was okay if she couldn't be a proper succubus, but deep down, she knew no amount of magic could change her fundamental nature. The spray has finally allowed her to be honest. She cries out that she was too embarrassed to admit her insecurities, making her feel like a complete failure as a demon. Suda begins to respond, then shouts with conviction, calling her a fool. Fafnir looks down at the crying girl and speaks in a soft but firm voice, agreeing that as a succubus, Patty might be weak. Patty looks up, her tear-filled eyes wide with hurt and surprise at her captain's words. But Fafnir grabs her by the shoulders, her expression filled with passion as she declares that Patty is also strong. She tells her that she knows how incredibly hard Patty must have worked to master teleportation magic, a feat unheard of for a succubus. Her voice rises with emotion as she insists that Patty has tried harder than any other demon, and it doesn't matter one bit if she thinks she's a failure. Looking directly into Patty's eyes, Fafnir says the words she has longed to hear. I acknowledge you. Overwhelmed, Patty can only cry out her captain's name. Fafnir gives her a rare, gentle, and incredibly proud smile. She softly places a hand on Patty's head, a gesture of deep respect and affection. You have done well, she says, finally giving Patty the validation she had been fighting for all this time. At that exact moment, a powerful wave of energy crackles around Patty's body. She suddenly collapses onto the couch as Suda and Fafnir call her name in alarm, worried that something is terribly wrong. But Patty sits up, a wondrous expression on her face. Her body is now surrounded by a beautiful, sparkling aura, and the succubus symbol on her stomach glows with a brilliant light. Her true desire was fulfilled. She turns to Suda, her eyes shining, saying she can't believe such a wonderful item could exist. He smiles modestly, saying he's just happy he could help. He then asks her to just call him Sauda, explaining that being called Sauda-sama feels strange for a simple merchant. Patty beams with a genuine, happy smile. She leans in close and says, "Soda Oni-chan, thank you." He is completely taken aback by the sudden, affectionate title. Now fully recovered and cheerful, Patty wishes them a good night and happily leaves the room, her smile finally back. Suda is left touching his cheek, blushing and repeating to himself, "Oni-san." Me? Fafnir turns to him with a serious expression, thanking him for his help but also admitting the situation made her realize her own shortcomings as a leader. Suda just smiles and says that he couldn't have done anything without his special items. Fafnir quietly listens to him, a thoughtful look on her face. She tells him that when they first met, she only saw the value in his powerful items and how they could benefit the demon world. She leans closer, her face flushed and her gaze intense. "However," she continues softly, "it's not just the items. It's your strength." Suda looks at her, completely captivated by her words and her closeness, whispering her name. Fafnir suddenly pulls back, completely flustered. She blames the lingering effects of the spray and quickly announces she's going to bed. As Suda stands nervously at his door, he hears her call his name one more time and turns in surprise. She stands in her doorway, her expression calm and sincere as she simply says, "Good night." A warm feeling spreads through Suda's chest. He smiles back at her and wishes her a good night as well. Back in his room, his magical notebook suddenly chimes. A message flashes on the page. His merchant level has risen to 2. Far away, in a grand and shadowy throne room, a powerful figure contemplates by candlelight. An attendant in glasses reports to her throne, confirming that the human, Sota, has been manifesting strange and wonderful items. The figure on the throne, a beautiful and powerful demon woman with large curling horns, takes a slow sip from her goblet. A small, intrigued smile plays on her lips. The ruler of this realm, the demon lord, makes her grand appearance. Lounging on her throne, she declares that she wants some snacks to go with her drink. A cunning, excited glint flashes in her eyes as she gives her command. The human is to be brought before her. Suta's reputation has finally reached the very top. Aoi Suta stares at his magical notebook. A strange message suddenly blazes across the page. His merchant skill level has just reached level 2. He's completely baffled by this sudden power-up. The book reveals the reason for his level up. His customer favorability has finally crossed the necessary threshold, though for a moment he struggles to understand what this could possibly mean. Then, the realization hits him like a bolt of lightning. He remembers the strange, heart-shaped meters from his other notebook, the one that reveals people's innermost secrets, and now understands they were far more than just a simple indicator. He clutches the notebook, his mind racing with this new information. He always assumed the favorability score was just a simple gauge of affection, never once dreaming that it was the very source of his growing merchant power. The profiles of Fafnir, Ugaruru, and Patty appear before him on the page, showing just how much their feelings for him have grown from nothing into genuine affection. A warm, sparkling feeling fills his chest. He realizes that by making others happy, he himself has become stronger. A newfound purpose fills him with energy. He pumps his fist, realizing that with this power, he can bring even more joy to the people in this strange new world. His victory is cut short by a strange scent. He pauses, confused, and lifts his arm to investigate. He recoils in absolute disgust. After all the stress and running around, he realizes with horror that he smells terrible. Just then, Fafnir enters the room, her expression knowing. She sees his distress and asks if he wants to take a bath. Embarrassed, Suda awkwardly explains that simply wiping down with a wet cloth isn't working anymore. Fafnir listens thoughtfully, considering his predicament. After a moment of thought, she stands up decisively from her desk. She tells him to come with her, her voice firm and resolute. Fafnir leads him out of the castle into a lush, beautiful forest. Suda looks around in awe, surprised by the peaceful scenery, and wondering where she could possibly be taking him. As they walk, a warm steam begins to rise from a pool of water ahead, carrying a peculiar and relaxing scent on the air. A cheerful voice suddenly calls out from the water. Ugaruru is already soaking in a hot spring, happily explaining that this is their usual bathing spot. Suda is shocked to see her there. Ugaruru just grins, admitting she saw them walking and followed because it looked interesting, earning a quiet grumble from Fafnir. Without a second thought, Ugaruru begins to undress. She invites them to join her in the water. Suda lets out a scream of pure panic. Ugaruru looks genuinely confused by his reaction. She asks why he is so surprised, explaining that it's normal for everyone to bathe together here, much to Suda's cultural shock. Fafnir, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment, grabs Ugaruru by the shoulder, desperately trying to get her to stop. Fafnir points a trembling finger at Suda, reminding Ugaruru that a man is present. But Ugaruru is completely unconcerned, asking what the problem is. Fafnir stammers, unable to properly explain her embarrassment, her cheeks turning bright red as she struggles for words. Ugaruru smirks, easily seeing through Fafnir's flustered state. She points out that Fafnir is just overly conscious of Sauda. Leaning in close, Ugaruru playfully teases Fafnir about how embarrassed she is. Fafnir frantically denies it, but her face gives her away. With a triumphant grin, Ugaruru loudly declares that the great Captain Fafnir is actually afraid of bathing with a human, leaving Fafnir speechless with humiliation. A short distance away, Suda crouches behind some bushes, sighing in relief as he tries to process the demon custom of mixed bathing. He trusts that Fafnir, with her responsible nature, will surely handle the situation and allow him to bathe in peace. His hopes are instantly shattered. Ugaruru walks towards him, followed by a deeply embarrassed Fafnir, who is barely covering herself at all. Fafnir, her face still red, tells Suda to hurry up and take his clothes off too, ignoring his frantic protests. She looks him in the eye, arguing that it would be unfair if he were the only one still dressed, much to his overwhelmed despair. As they begin to pull at his shirt from both sides, he yells for them to stop, promising he will undress himself. A moment later, Ugaruru is relaxing peacefully in the warm water, while Fafnir sits beside her, stiff with discomfort. Suda sinks into the water, his face a mess of blush and anxiety, unable to believe he ended up in this situation. He looks down at the milky white water, grateful that its cloudy nature is the only thing saving him from total mortification. Trapped between them, he feels there is nowhere safe for him to look without causing even more awkwardness. For now, he decides the only option is to stare down at the water and pray for this to be over quickly. The silence is broken when Ugaruru turns to Sauda with a grin, asking if he has any fun bath items to liven things up. She complains that it's boring with everyone being so quiet and tense, earning an annoyed glance from Fafnir. With a mischievous glint in her eye, Ugaruru leans in close to Sauda, offering to do something fun with him instead. Terrified, Sauda desperately summons his notebook, hoping to find a 2-star item to distract her from her chaotic plans. He quickly finds the perfect solution. He exclaims that he's found just the thing, catching both girls' attention. With a confident smile, he manifests an adorable, penguin-shaped bottle wearing a baby bonnet and holding a pacifier. He immediately slips into his merchant persona, presenting the baby bubbles, and explaining how its magical foam will melt away all their stress and fatigue, leaving them feeling refreshed and carefree. Ugaruru is immediately captivated and takes the bottle. Fafnir, however, remains skeptical, questioning if it can really do all that. Before anyone can stop her, Ugaruru excitedly squirts the bubbles directly onto Fafnir, much to Suda's shock. Suda covers his face in his hands, unable to watch. He tries to tell her to wait, but it is far too late. Ugaruru happily rubs the bubbles all over a flustered Fafnir, who begs her to stop as Ugaruru laughs about how soft her skin is. Peeking through his fingers, Suda finds himself unable to look away from the bizarre and chaotic scene unfolding before him. Fafnir, reaching her breaking point, warns Ugaruru in a low voice to stop, but her friend continues to play, completely oblivious. Fafnir snaps. With tears in her eyes, she shouts like a pouting child, declaring she will never play with Ugaruru again. The item's hidden side effect is revealed. The bubbles cause the user's mind to revert to a childish state, explaining Fafnir's sudden tantrum. Fafnir's face is scrunched up, tears streaming from her eyes. The bubbles have completely turned the fearsome dragon captain into a crying toddler. Suda panics, waving his hands frantically as he tries to calm her. He tells her not to cry, but she stubbornly shouts back that she isn't. His mind flashes back to playing with his little cousins. He suddenly has an idea. He grabs the bottle. He squeezes some of the liquid into his palm. He carefully blows, creating a large, shimmering bubble. He cheerfully points it out. Fafnir's crying stops instantly, her eyes widening in pure amazement. She asks if he made it, her voice filled with childlike wonder, and he happily confirms that he did. Her tantrum completely forgotten, Fafnir's face lights up with joy. She begs him to teach her how to make bubbles too. Suda sighs in relief, marveling at how much trouble a two-star item can cause. But his peace is short-lived. Now it's Ugaruru who is crying, her face a mask of childish jealousy as she demands Suda play with her too. Seeing her friend upset, Fafnir points an accusing finger at Suda, calling him a bully for making Ugaruru cry. Thinking fast, Suda frantically pumps more bubbles into his hands, desperate to de-escalate the situation. The two girls stare, their argument momentarily forgotten as they watch him, mesmerized by the bubbles. With a burst of inspiration, Suda covers his hair in foam, shaping it into horns. He playfully roars, declaring himself the bubble monster. Fafnir and Ugaruru stare at his silly performance, their anger and sadness replaced by utter confusion. A moment later, they both burst out laughing, finding his act absolutely hilarious. His quick thinking saved the day. As he washes the foam from his hair, he feels a bit too cheerful. He realizes with a jolt of fear that the bubbles are affecting him too. He frantically scrubs his head. He has to fight off the childish effect. He's the only adult left. The peace is shattered when Ugaruru grabs his arm, insisting they go look at some pretty flowers, ignoring his protests that they are still naked. She tries to pull him from the water, but is stopped. Fafnir grabs his other arm, pulling him back. She declares that Suda will be playing with her first. She tells Ugaruru that there is an order to things, and she can be next, holding on to Suda tightly. Ugaruru pouts, complaining that Fafnir always gets to play with him and she wants more of his attention. The two girls begin a tug of war, arguing over who gets to play with Suda, who is trapped helplessly between them. He's never been in a situation like this before, caught between two girls in a hot spring, and his mind is reeling. He knows he needs to stop them, but he has no idea what will happen if things escalate any further. His face is flushed, and the stress of the situation is becoming far too much for him to handle. Both girls are calling his name, pulling him back and forth, their childish argument growing more intense. They both look at him with demanding eyes, asking him to choose which one of them he will play with. Suda's eyes widen in terror. The situation is bad. It's very, very bad. He feels his head spinning, unsure if it's from the hot water, the bubbles' magic, or the sheer, overwhelming panic. Suddenly, the pulling stops. The shouting goes quiet. He looks from side to side, confused by their sudden stillness. His confusion turns to absolute horror. Both Fafnir and Ugaruru are floating limply in the water, having passed out. He frantically tries to wake them, calling out their names as he sees small bubbles escape their lips. The chaotic day finally ends with a traumatized Suda begging for help, having firmly decided he will always bathe alone from now on. The next morning, Fafnir is back to being the responsible Dragon Unit commander, pushing through her intense workout routine. She strains, counting past 1,000 reps, giving it her all to maintain her formidable strength. She finishes with a satisfied gasp, sweat dripping from her face but a look of accomplishment in her eyes. Standing up, she proudly announces that her morning training is complete, feeling energized and ready for the day. She stretches, feeling limber and strong. She reflects on how her body used to feel heavy, but now her workouts are much easier. A happy smile spreads across her face as she gives credit to Suda's goofy little sun item, admitting that it makes her feel great. Sitting at her desk, she lets the warmth from the floating orb wash over her, a blissful expression on her face. She melts into her chair, feeling so relaxed and peaceful that she has no desire to move at all. Her tranquility is shattered by frantic knocking at the door. One of her soldiers rushes in, apologizing for the disturbance. The soldier delivers an urgent report. Humans are hunting magical beasts in the eastern forest. Fafnir's demeanor vanishes, replaced by the sharp focus of a commander as she leaps to her feet. Deep in the forest, a rare, three-eyed creature struggles in a rope trap as a human poacher tries to soothe it. The two poachers smile at each other, happy with their catch and commenting on what a good haul it is for the day. As one of them begins to talk about their profits, A cold, powerful voice cuts through the air, demanding to know what they are doing. In a blur of motion, Fafnir descends, landing between the poachers and their prize with overwhelming force. The men stumble backward, screaming in terror as they realize they have just encountered a powerful demon. Fafnir stands before them in her full battle armor, her face a mask of cold fury, the playful girl gone and replaced by a terrifying warrior. Without hesitation, she lunges forward. She throws a powerful punch, striking one of the poachers square in the chest. The force is immense. Both men are sent flying backward through the air, completely overwhelmed by her strength. She stands confidently, her axe resting on her shoulder, believing the last of them have been dealt with. A soldier explains that the poachers were capturing the beasts alive to sell in the human world. Fafnir orders the creatures freed immediately. With the poachers tied up, Fafnir looks on grimly. She mutters that the number of human invaders has been increasing lately. A map of the forest reveals this is not an isolated incident. Several other groups have already been stopped. Her soldiers observe the prisoners' worn-out clothes, guessing they are poor men taking a desperate risk. Fafnir wonders what could drive them to do something so dangerous, her thoughts interrupted by the squeak of a freed creature. Suddenly, she spots another poacher trying to sneak away. She shouts for him to stop, realizing there are more. The man runs deeper into the woods. Fafnir grits her teeth, knowing they will lose him if he escapes. Before her soldiers can move, one of them is sent flying. Fafnir and her unit stop, surprised by the sudden intervention. A new figure stands over the captured poacher. It's Ugaruru, who yawns and complains that the chase ended too quickly. Fafnir calls out her name, surprised to see her friend, who just turns with a casual, carefree smile. With a sigh of relief, Fafnir thanks her for the help. Ugaruru flashes a wide grin and a peace sign. She proudly holds up the captured poacher, boasting that with the super-speed shoes Suda gave her, no one can escape. Ugaruru's expression turns menacing. She looks down at the terrified man and asks what they should do with them. The poacher trembles with fear, begging for his life and pleading that he has a family. Ugaruru taps her chin, pretending to consider his words. She then points out that he was trespassing in their land. She leans in, a terrifying grin on her face. She tells him that he made the choice to come here, so he cannot complain about what happens next. Just as Ugaruru is about to deliver punishment, Fafnir steps in, telling her to hold on and let it go. Fafnir explains that the demon lord dislikes unnecessary killing. She suggests they just knock them unconscious and leave them outside the forest. The poacher listens, his face pale with terror, hanging on her every word, his life in the balance. Fafnir's expression becomes incredibly fierce. She raises her axe, warning them that if they ever return, their heads will never be reattached. She glares down at the man, asking if he understands. He stammers in terror that he gets the message loud and clear. With the threat delivered, Fafnir turns and calls out for Patty to assist them. The shy succubus steps out from behind a tree, nervously confirming that she is there. Fafnir asks her to use her magic to teleport the humans. Patty eagerly agrees, her staff glowing with power. A glowing magical circle appears beneath the captured men, who look around in confusion and fear. As the light intensifies, Fafnir gives them one final ice-cold stare, telling them to never forget her warning. The poachers are instantly transported far outside the forest. They sit in a daze, realizing with immense relief that their lives have been spared. Back in the forest, Fafnir confirms with Patty that the poachers are gone. Patty beams, giving her a cheerful, "Yep!" Fafnir praises her, impressed by how much her teleportation range has improved. Patty blushes, happy to be recognized. Patty proudly explains that her magic grew stronger when she became a full-fledged succubus. Fafnir smiles, genuinely pleased for her. Fafnir gently pats Patty on the head, playfully teasing her about how she used to be a crybaby, showing how close they've become. Their work done, Ugaruru's stomach growls loudly. Fafnir smiles and announces that it is time for everyone to head home. Later, back in her office, Fafnir diligently works on her report, writing down the day's events. She lets out a tired sigh. Even after a long day, there is still so much paperwork to do. After finishing the last page, she leans back and gives a big stretch, relieved to finally be done. As she relaxes, she catches a faint scent and sniffs her shoulder, wondering if she smells a bit sweaty. Her eyes widen in panic. She remembers the deodorant cream. She was in such a rush she completely forgot to put it on. Later, in her room, she sits on her bed and carefully applies the cream, making sure to cover every spot. As she does, her mind wanders. She recalls this was the very first of Suta's strange items she ever saw. She remembers the incredibly awkward moment he had to apply it for her. Her face flushing as she recalls it felt like a massage. She pauses, noticing something. The special tingling sensation from the cream feels weaker now than it did back then. Her thoughts drift to Suda himself. She thinks of him. She remembers his hands. They were bigger than hers. They were warmer. The memory makes her whole body tingle, a deep blush spreading across her face. She gasps softly, surprised by the intensity of her own unexpected feelings. She reflects on how much has changed. At first, she couldn't bring herself to trust him at all, but then she thinks of everything that happened after, how he helped her, Ugururu, and Patty, and realizes that she slowly began to trust him more and more. Her thoughts are filled with memories of Suta's kindness. He is always offering her a helping hand. She wonders if she can truly accept it. A deep blush covers her face as she questions her own feelings, wondering if she is still holding back. Overwhelmed by her confusing emotions, she flops onto her bed, burying her face in a pillow and scolding herself for getting so worked up. Her turmoil is shattered by a sudden knock. She jolts upright, startled by the unexpected visitor. Thinking it's one of her soldiers, she quickly starts to get dressed, calling out that she's on her way. She cautiously peeks the door open, her expression still flustered and confused from her thoughts. She finds Suda standing right outside, his hand raised. It seems they were both looking for each other. Standing beside Fafnir is a stern-looking demon with glasses who introduces herself to Suda as Mep, the demon lord's personal secretary. Mep gets straight to the point. The demon lord has summoned them both to the throne room. Suda's eyes widen in shock. As Mep turns to lead the way, she gives them a stern warning to behave themselves. A bead of sweat rolls down Suda's cheek. He swallows nervously, his heart pounding in his chest. They walk down a grand corridor, Suda trapped between the serious Mep and a tense Fafnir on his way to meet the most powerful being in the land. They stop before a pair of gigantic, beautifully carved doors. The path to the demon lord is open. Suda gulps, his fear growing. Fafnir glances over, a hint of concern in her eyes. Mep announces they have arrived at the throne room. The massive doors begin to creak open. The doors swing open to reveal a vast chamber. At the far end, on an ornate throne, the demon lord is waiting. The demon lord is an imposing figure with large curved horns and a royal crown, looking bored and annoyed. A closer look reveals her tired, irritated expression, as if she is dealing with a terrible headache. Suda feels a crushing weight in the air, an incredibly heavy and intimidating atmosphere filling the throne room. He realizes that even though she is just sitting there silently, the demon lord radiates an overwhelming power he can feel on his skin. She finally raises her hand. Suda braces himself. He is face to face with the leader of all demons. But instead of a powerful spell, she grabs a wooden bucket and suddenly gets sick into it. Suda's jaw drops. His fear is instantly replaced by utter disbelief. The demon lord is throwing up. Fafnir and Mep rush to her side, scolding her for drinking too much and sitting on the throne with a hangover. The demon lord then grabs 2 bottles of liquor and starts chugging them, only for Fafnir to point out she's drinking the leftover dregs. Mep and Fafnir continue to scold their ruler, who seems to be throwing a royal tantrum in response. After the chaos dies down, Fafnir and Suda kneel before the throne. Fafnir formally introduces Suda as the human merchant. Fafnir then turns to Suda and properly introduces the demon lord. Her name is Nabura Nightfall. She is slumped in her throne, looking exhausted and clutching her head. While she complains about her headache, Suda sneakily takes out his notebook to get some information. He opens the book to her profile, but the page is filled with one word over and over: alcohol. As Mep gives the demon lord some water, Suda feels a strange sense of relief. He is almost embarrassed, he was so nervous. The demon lord asks if that was an ugly display. Suda quickly bows and assures her it was not a problem. Now more composed, she tells Suda that she has heard reports about a merchant with strange items helping her people. He bows deeply, thanking her for her kindness. She waves her hand, telling him not to be so formal. She then leans forward, her interest piqued. She asks him to show her some of his rare items. He decides to summon items he's already familiar with. He opens his book and begins to manifest them. He presents a variety of his strange creations. The demon lord laughs, amused by the collection. Her attention is caught by the arrow eye bananas. She remarks that they look tasty and reaches for one as Suda panics, but it's too late. She takes a bite, her eyes immediately drooping into a silly expression as she bursts out laughing. Fafnir frantically scolds Suda for letting it happen, while he tries to explain that the effect is only temporary. In the middle of the fuss, the demon lord calmly snaps her fingers. In an instant, her eyes return to normal. The banana's magic is completely gone. Suda stares in awe. A demon lord's power is so immense, she can simply cancel out the effects of his items. He now understands her true nature. She might act silly, but underneath lies an overwhelming power. This is the true strength of the demon lord. She praises his items, saying she hasn't seen anything like them in thousands of years. Suda feels honored. The playful atmosphere suddenly vanishes. Her expression turns sharp and serious. She asks if it isn't a little strange that a man with items so unique that even she has never seen them would just randomly appear. She leans forward, her eyes glowing with intensity. She demands to know where he really came from. Suda freezes. He realizes the entire meeting was a clever act to make him lower his guard. As Suda hesitates, the truth curse on his neck flares to life, a painful reminder that he cannot lie. He grits his teeth against the magical pressure. He knows that under this curse, he is physically incapable of telling a falsehood. Panic floods his mind. He remembers Fafnir's mission was to eliminate heroes. If they find out, he's dead. The demon lord watches his struggle, her eyes sharp. His silence is more telling than any lie. Trapped, Suda bows his head to the floor. He declares that he cannot answer her question. Fafnir cries out his name in alarm. Suda knows that if he reveals his origins, he will be executed. Thinking faster than ever, he switches to a bold offense. He announces that he has a different proposal. In a stunning display of confidence, he stands and faces her. He asks if she will make a wager with him. The demon lord's expression shifts to one of genuine intrigue. A sly, curious smile appears on her lips. With everyone's attention on him, his face becomes a mask of determination. He raises his hand. Manifest! A massive, transparent cube filled with colored circles materializes. He proudly presents Twister, Near Future Edition. He immediately launches into his expert merchant pitch, explaining the rules of the strange game of balance. A brief flashback reveals the item's origin. A young Suda, captivated by a game on TV, had doodled this item. He lays out the terms. If she wins, he will give her any item and any information. But if she loses, she gets nothing. He looks her directly in the eye and asks if she will accept his challenge. Fafnir is aghast, but Suda knows what he's doing. The demon lord's profile revealed her second greatest weakness: gambling. The demon lord leans forward, her eyes sparkling with excitement. The prospect of a bet has captured her interest. She bursts out laughing. She exclaims that this sounds incredibly interesting. Mep is speechless. She can't believe a mere prisoner would dare to challenge her highness. The demon lord rises from her throne. She remarks that he reminds her of someone else just as bold. She declares, "Very well, I'll accept your match." Her voice echoes through the hall. A wave of relief washes over Suda. His all-or-nothing gamble has worked. He has found a way out. The demon lord claps her hands, eager for the game to begin. She then points directly at a stunned Fafnir and commands that she will be the one to play. Suda is shocked. He has to play against Fafnir? The demon lord smirks, explaining that it is only natural for a loyal subject to compete for her. She grins and raises a bottle of liquor, revealing her true motive. She loves to drink while watching a good gamble. Fafnir whirls around to face Suda, her face a mixture of anger and embarrassment. She points a trembling finger at him. She declares that she will not hold back. This is a real battle. Suda swallows hard, the gravity of the situation crashing down on him. He stammers his agreement. The rules are explained. Players must follow the commands, and if a hand or foot lifts, they lose. The game begins. The demon lord calls out the first command. Right hand red. Fafnir executes the move with breathtaking grace, planting her hand on a red dot while extending her leg high into the air. Suda's eyes are unintentionally drawn to her powerful form, the sweat on her skin, and her cheeks flushed with effort. A deep blush spreads across his face. He realizes this game is far more distracting than he ever anticipated. Fafnir notices him staring. She asks what he is looking at, her voice strained from the difficult pose. As the game continues, they become more tangled. Suda struggles to regain his focus. He cannot afford to be distracted. The demon lord calls out the next move for Suda. Left foot, yellow, an impossible position. She sips her drink with a smug smile, confident that he will not be able to reach it. Mep watches from the side, agreeing that it does not look possible for him to make that move. But Suda just grins. He tells the demon lord that the best part is still to come. With a loud, determined yell that surprises Fafnir, he pushes his body to its absolute limits. He successfully places his foot on the yellow dot. He achieves this by bending over backward into a perfect bridge, a feat of incredible and unexpected flexibility. Fafnir stares in disbelief, asking how he can possibly be so flexible. Suda smirks, the old muscle memory returning. He remembers his old part-time job as a yoga assistant. He had a secret plan for this match all along. While holding the pose, he cheerily explains its health benefits. Fafnir tells him to stop talking in that creepy position. She growls in frustration, realizing she was completely caught off guard by his hidden talent. The demon lord calls out the next move for Fafnir. Right foot, blue, a dot high up on the wall. Fafnir grits her teeth. The position is incredibly challenging, but her pride as a warrior is on the line. With a powerful cry, she uses her demonic strength to twist her body, slamming her foot onto the blue dot.
With a triumphant grin, Fafnir declares that she is not done yet,
proving her strength and determination. The demon lord watches from her throne, a spark of genuine interest in her eyes at Fafnir's impressive display. The game forces them into increasingly tangled and awkward positions. Fafnir ends up pressed right against Suda, who yelps that she is way too close for comfort. From his twisted-up angle, Suda finds his face is now stuck with a very distracting view. He complains to himself that he can't look away, no matter how hard he tries. Fafnir struggles to hold her pose, her face flushed and beaded with sweat. The strain is immense, but she refuses to give up. The demon lord, thoroughly enjoying the show, decides to stir up trouble. She playfully asks Fafnir if it looks like Suda wants to get even closer to her chest. Suda is horrified by her teasing comment. Fafnir's face explodes in a blush of pure rage and embarrassment. She shouts at her leader, completely flustered. Distracted by her own anger, Fafnir loses her concentration for a split second. Her hand slips from the colored dot. She loses her balance completely and falls forward, right on top of the trapped and horrified Suda. Suda is completely smothered, his face buried against her. He gasps, unable to breathe at all. Fafnir trembles, her body vibrating with a mixture of embarrassment and a strange, tingling sensation. They are now in an incredibly compromised position. Fafnir is struggling to push herself up, crying out in distress. She realizes with a jolt that the intense feeling is because her body is rubbing against his, a sensation amplified by the deodorant he gave her. As she struggles, her hand slips further. She knows that if she falls completely, she'll lose the game. Her eyes are squeezed shut in a mix of frustration, effort, and overwhelming embarrassment. Just as she is about to lose her grip, the game calls out the next move for Suda. The command allows him to move his hand, freeing him from being pinned. He pants for air, feeling like he's just been saved from certain doom. Fafnir, still recovering from the fall and breathless from the effort, calls out his name. She glares at him, demanding to know what he thinks he's doing, unfairly blaming him for the entire embarrassing situation. Suda, flustered and panicked, can only stammer out a frantic apology. Back in the game, Fafnir mutters that she will never forget this humiliation as she moves to the next commanded spot. Suddenly, one of the dots on the floor glows brightly. A new rule magically appears on the wall. Rule change. If you escape the box, you win. Both Suda and Fafnir are baffled. Suda realizes that one of the special circles must have been touched, triggering a random event. A flashback shows a young Suda drawing in his notebook, thinking that a normal game is too boring and deciding to add crazy rules with no limits to make it more exciting. Before they can even process the new rule, the entire cube comes to life. Dozens of long, white tentacles erupt from the walls, floor, and ceiling. From the throne, the demon lord watches with wide, delighted eyes, while Mep looks on with nervous dread. Fafnir screams, asking what the tentacles are. Suda yells back that they need to run, explaining it's a random event. Fafnir angrily shouts that he never said anything about this. The tentacles move with lightning speed, instantly wrapping around Fafnir's arms and legs. She screams in shock as she is completely bound and lifted into the air. Suda cries out her name in alarm. He has no time to help. as he is immediately captured by the tentacles as well. The tentacles pull them both towards the center of the cube, wrapping them tightly together. They are now bound back to back, completely immobilized. Fafnir struggles, yelling at Suda to get off of her, but he protests that he's just as trapped as she is. The demon lord throws her head back and roars with laughter, finding the entire chaotic spectacle absolutely hilarious. Beside her, Mep just sighs, nursing a headache. The demon lord continues to taunt them, telling Suda to be a man and risk his life. Suda internally despairs over their cruel and carefree ruler. They both struggle against their bonds, trying desperately to find a way to escape. But being pressed so tightly against Fafnir is making it impossible for Suda to focus. He knows he has to calm down and clear his mind. Suddenly, his eyes widen. An idea strikes him. He remembers the perfect technique for clearing one's mind. Skill channeling, yoga instructor, he declares, his voice suddenly calm and professional. Fafnir looks at him in utter confusion. Suda's entire demeanor shifts. He closes his eyes and enters a state of perfect, serene meditation, a peaceful aura surrounding him. Fafnir, still struggling, asks what on earth he is doing. Suda calmly explains that meditation is a way to block out the noise of the world and find the universe within yourself. In a soothing voice, he instructs her to close her eyes and focus only on her breathing, letting go of all thoughts of the past or future. He tells her that in this state, only the present moment exists. Fafnir grits her teeth, shouting at him for spouting such nonsense during a crisis. But then, she notices something incredible. As Suda remains perfectly calm, the tentacles binding him begin to loosen and unravel on their own. She redoubles her own efforts, trying to break free with brute force. But her struggles are useless. The more she fights, the tighter the magical bonds seem to hold her. Suda, his voice still serene, encourages her to try meditation too, telling her that she can also break free from her worldly ties. Fafnir hesitates, annoyed by his bizarre methods but also desperate to escape. With a reluctant sigh, she gives in. She closes her eyes and tries to follow his instructions, focusing on her breathing and letting her frantic thoughts fade away. A calm, meditative aura begins to form around her as well. As she finds her inner peace, the tentacles wrapped around her begin to loosen and retract. A moment later, they are both completely free. They stand in the center of the cube, the tentacles now hanging limply around them. Suda looks around, confused but relieved, stating that for some reason, the tentacles let them go. Fafnir turns to Suda, her expression serious. She asks if he knew the whole time that struggling only made the tentacles tighter. She clenches her fist, realizing that if he knew the secret, he could have easily freed himself and won the game on his own. Her voice is filled with frustration and hurt, reminding him that this was a serious match for the Demon Lord's honor. With tears in her eyes, she asks why he didn't take the win, crying out if he truly pities her that much. Suda looks at her, realizing his actions looked like an act of pity, and he admits that he could have won alone. A flashback shows the moment they were both trapped. He remembers looking over and seeing Fafnir struggling desperately against her bonds. With a gentle, slightly embarrassed smile, he confesses the real reason. He just couldn't bring himself to leave her there like that. Fafnir is stunned into silence. His words are so simple and sincere, completely different from what she was expecting. A wave of emotion washes over her. She realizes his action was about genuine care, not pity. She wordlessly extends her hand to him, a silent invitation. She tells him that they have to get out of the box together now, no longer as opponents, but as partners. Suda takes her hand and they clasp them firmly. In that moment, they are a team. From her throne, the Demon Lord watches them walk out of the game box hand in hand, a thoughtful expression on her face. The Demon Lord smiles, a mix of amusement and intrigue, realizing the chaotic game has only strengthened the bond between them. They stand before the throne once more. The game now over, waiting for the final judgment on their wager. The Demon Lord leans back, smiling. She says that was truly fun to watch, clearly entertained by the spectacle. She playfully flicks Fafnir's horn, making the proud captain flinch in annoyance. She thanks Suda, telling him it has been a long time since she laughed that hard. Suda nervously asks the most important question. What is the final outcome of the bet? The demon lord gives him a sly, knowing grin. She asks if it hasn't already been decided. Mep steps forward to explain the official ruling to the confused pair. She reminds them of the special rule that was triggered. The first person to escape the box wins. She announces the winner is Fafnir. Both Suda and Fafnir look completely shocked by the verdict. Fafnir immediately tries to protest, arguing that she only got free because Suda helped her, but the demon lord silences her, declaring that rules are rules, and a bet is a bet. The fun is over. The demon lord turns her gaze to Suda, who is kneeling on the floor, defeated. Her expression is now deadly serious. With her victory secured, she demands he fulfill his part of the bargain and tell her everything. Suda's blood runs cold. He is trapped. He must now confess that he is a summoned hero, an enemy of all demons. The demon lord watches him, her piercing eyes waiting patiently for the truth to be revealed. He trembles, everything he worked so hard to hide about to come crashing down around him. To be thrown into this world and go through so much danger was all because of his former manager. All his pent-up frustration finally boils over. In a moment of pure, unfiltered rage, he screams her name. That damn no! The name hangs in the air. The demon lord's eyes snap wide open in utter shock. Her playful and intimidating auras vanish completely. She asks what he just said, her voice barely a whisper. Suda immediately realizes what he has done, his outburst giving away a critical piece of information. In a flash, the demon lord is off her throne and right in front of him. She demands to know if he knows Nostra. Caught by the truth curse, Suda has no choice but to answer, stammering as he tries to explain. He confesses that he was sent to this world by Nostra herself, leaving the demon lord completely stunned. A memory floods the demon lord's mind, taking her back to a tense game of chess. She remembers growling in frustration, on the verge of yet another loss. She recalls throwing a tantrum after being defeated for the 5th time in a row. Her opponent, a beautiful woman with blonde hair, teased her, telling her she would never win. That opponent was Nostra, the legendary sage. She remembers demanding another game, her competitive spirit refusing to accept defeat so easily. Nostra just looked at her with a calm, knowing, and slightly mischievous smile. Nostra suggested that playing just for fun was boring and proposed they change things up. She had asked, "How about you make a bet with me?" Her words echo Suda's own gamble from just moments ago. Back in the present, Suda watches as the demon lord's entire presence changes. Hearing that name has shaken her to her core. The demon lord stands, her voice filled with a complex emotion as she softly refers to Nostra as her only friend. Mep and Fafnir are flabbergasted. They never knew their ruler was friends with the famous human sage of prophecy. The demon lord turns back to Suda. She points out that the curse on his neck didn't react, which means he is telling the absolute truth. Her eyes narrow as she puts the final piece of the puzzle together in her mind. She points dramatically at Suda, her voice echoing as she declares that he must be the summoned hero Nostra spoke of. Fafnir gasps, her eyes wide with disbelief. She looks at Suda, completely shocked by the revelation that he is a hero. Her mind flashes back to her ingrained beliefs that heroes are their natural enemies, creatures to be fought without question. Just as Mep begins to move toward Suda, the demon lord raises her hand, her voice sharp and commanding her to stop. Mep, who had moved with silent speed, already has a dagger pressed against Suda's throat. Suda is terrified, not even having seen her move. She appeared behind him in an instant. Mep questions her ruler's command, arguing that heroes are the mortal enemies of demons. But the demon lord firmly tells her she is wrong. The demon lord corrects her, quoting Nostra's prophecy directly. Heroes are saviors from another world, and the message never says anything about destroying demons. Mep is stunned into silence by this revelation, her long-held beliefs completely challenged by her leader. The demon lord explains the history. Humans attacked first out of fear, and over time, the prophecy was twisted until all demons believed heroes were their enemies. She turns away, her cape swirling dramatically as she walks back towards her throne. She stops and looks over her shoulder, her voice firm as she states that her conviction on this matter is unwavering. Her mind flashes back to her time with Nostra. She declares that she will trust the person chosen by the only one she ever called a friend. Mep understands the demon lord's decision. Nostra has entrusted this boy to her. The answer is clear. With a swift motion, Mep sheathes her dagger and steps back, her duty fulfilled. Suda collapses in relief. He is safe. The demon lord apologizes for her subordinate's actions with a casual smile. Now that the misunderstanding is cleared, the demon lord asks what Nostra told him when she sent him here. Suda thinks back to his manager's cheerful, careless attitude, vaguely telling him to go save the other world, without any real explanation. The demon lord looks at Suda with a serious expression, her playful demeanor gone. She explains that the summoning of a hero is an omen, a sign that a great crisis is coming to their world. Fafnir looks at Suda with a worried and conflicted expression. She asks him a difficult question about when that crisis comes. She asks him what he would do if he were forced to choose a side. The question hangs heavily in the air. The demon lord holds up a hand, telling him not to rush his answer to such an important question. She dismisses them, telling them to return to her when they have a definite answer. The throne room doors swing open. Outside the throne room, Suda collapses against the wall, utterly exhausted from the emotional and mental strain. He thinks back on the whirlwind of events. It all worked out in the end, but he feels incredibly drained. He suggests to Fafnir that they should call it a day and head back to their rooms to rest. Fafnir stands silently, her back to him. Her body is rigid and tense. Suda notices her strange stillness and asks if she is all right, his voice filled with concern. Fafnir turns, her expression unreadable and distant as she mumbles something under her breath. She quickly says, "Good work today," and announces she's going back to her room, walking away without another word. Suda watches her leave, a new worry taking root. He wonders what she really thinks about heroes now. He stands alone in the long corridor, watching her figure disappear into the distance, a growing unease in his heart. He remembers her fierce declaration to defeat the summoned heroes, and he understands she is avoiding him because of this inner conflict. Later that night, Suda lies in his bed, completely unable to sleep after the day's events. His body is tired, but his mind is racing, replaying the demon lord's heavy question over and over. He stares at the ceiling, lost in thought. Oppose the demons? Fight other humans? He can't even imagine it. He sits up in frustration, realizing that just thinking about it will not give him an answer. Unable to rest, he gets out of bed and looks out the window into the dark, cloudy night. He decides to go for a walk and ends up on one of the castle's balconies, seeking fresh air. On the balcony, Fafnir is also standing there, looking out at the sky with a sad and conflicted expression. She thinks to herself that Suda is really a hero, just as the demon lord said, trying to process the truth. She wonders what she is supposed to do now, caught between her sworn duty and her growing feelings for him. She sighs, disappointed that the thick clouds are completely hiding the stars from view. Suddenly, she hears his voice. They are both surprised to see each other out here so late. Suda is instantly flustered. He did not expect to run into her here and has no idea what to say. They both stand there awkwardly for a moment, the silence between them heavy and uncomfortable. They both try to speak at once, resulting in a clumsy, flustered, and overlapping exchange of apologies. Suda manages to explain that he couldn't sleep and used to watch the stars to calm himself, glad that they are finally talking again. Fafnir looks up at the cloudy sky. She says wistfully that she has never seen the stars here even once. She turns to Suda, a curious and gentle look on her face, wondering what they must look like from this world. A brilliant idea strikes Suda. A wide smile spreads across his face as he knows just what to do. He quickly summons his notebook. He tells her to give him a second as he excitedly flips through the pages. He manifests a new item, a small round bomb with a goofy face, attached to a weather charm. He shouts its name. "Teru Teru Bomber!" Fafnir watches, confused, as Suda winds up his arm, preparing to throw the strange object. He yells, "Go!" and launches the strange bomb high into the sky with all his might. A flashback shows a young Suda drawing the item, hoping to clear away rain clouds for his school field trips. The Teru Teru bomber soars through the dark clouds, glowing with a brilliant, magical light. It detonates in a massive, silent explosion of light that instantly blows away all the clouds in the sky. Suda proudly explains that his creation is powerful enough to change the weather itself. Fafnir gasps, her eyes wide with wonder as she stares up at the newly revealed sky. She whispers that it's beautiful. Above them, The sky is now a breathtaking canvas of countless glittering stars, a sight of pure cosmic beauty. They both look up, completely mesmerized by the magnificent and otherworldly view. Sauda is amazed, realizing this sky is even more spectacular than the one on Earth. Fafnir is speechless. Suda turns to her with a warm, genuine smile. He tells her that he is glad she got to see them. Fafnir is deeply touched by his gesture. She looks at him, her expression soft and full of a new emotion. She softly says his name, her voice filled with a feeling she can't quite describe. With the heavy tension between them gone, she asks him again, her voice gentle, what he will do now as a hero. She echoes the demon lord's heavy question, needing to know his answer for herself. She asks him which he will save, the demon realm or the human realm.
Suda looks away from the stars, his expression thoughtful as he considers the impossible choice before him. He scratches his cheek and gives a surprisingly casual answer.
Wondering aloud what he should do, much to Fafnir's confusion. She exclaims in disbelief that he is the chosen hero and that is all he has to say about it. He leans on the balcony railing, looking at the stars. He admits that while he doesn't know how to save the world, there is one thing that is clear to him. He thinks of all the demons he has met. He turns to Fafnir and declares, I want to work hard, for all of you. He explains that helping them and seeing them smile has given him a happiness he has never known before. A bright, determined smile lights up his face. He declares that he does not want to quit such a fun job. He states that even though he is a human hero, he will keep working here at the Demon Castle. He looks back at the sky. He says with a hopeful smile that maybe, somehow, that will lead to saving the world. Fafnir stares at him, her heart pounding. His simple, heartfelt answer has completely swept away all her doubts. She speaks softly, acknowledging that the future is uncertain and their roles might one day make them enemies. Suda agrees that he does not know what might happen, but Fafnir's resolve has solidified. Her eyes shine with a newfound hope. She declares that she wants to see that future. With a radiant smile, she reaches out her hand. She wants a future where all species can exist alongside one another. She steps forward and embraces him tightly. She whispers that she will believe in him. Under the magical starry sky, she closes her eyes and kisses him, sealing her promise. In that instant, a brilliant light flashes from Suda's neck. The fool's beheading curse shatters into nothing. He touches his neck, stunned. He asks if she undid the curse. She tells him it is proof of her trust. Suda looks at her, moved beyond words. He thinks that maybe it is just the effect of the starry sky. But her smiling face right now is prettier than any other sight in the universe. Suddenly, the beautiful moment shatters. The scene cuts to a chaotic room filled with panic. Suda is screaming for help. The camera pans down to a horrific sight. Fafnir is on the floor, gravely wounded and unconscious. She lies in a pool of her own blood, one of her horns broken off. The future they just wished for is fading away. From a balcony above, demons shout down, telling them to keep up the healing magic and for Fafnir to hang on. Fafnir coughs violently, blood spilling from her lips as she struggles to breathe. Suda watches in horror, panicking as he realizes that healing potions and magic are having no effect. His mind flashes back to the peaceful moment on the balcony just last night, unable to understand what could have happened. He turns as a furious roar echoes through the room. Ugaruru is being held back by two soldiers. Ugaruru struggles against her comrades, her face twisted in rage and grief, wanting revenge against whoever did this. She screams in fury, shouting that she cannot just stand by after what those humans did to Fafnir. Suda tries to reason with her, calling her name in a panic, trying to get her to calm down. Ugaruru whirls around and grabs Suda by the shoulders, her eyes wide with frantic energy. Startled by her intensity, Suda asks what happened to cause all of this chaos and despair. Ugaruru's gaze is desperate as she asks him if he was there when it happened, her grip tightening as a flashback begins. She recounts how they heard about poachers in the forest again late last night and went to investigate. Ugaruru was shocked to see that it was the same group of men Fafnir had shown mercy to just the other day. In the flashback, Ugaruru taunts the captured humans, but Fafnir scolds her and tells her to stop. Ugaruru couldn't understand Fafnir's leniency and questioned why she was going so easy on them. Fafnir, tired of the conflict, simply ordered her soldiers to send the men back. Ugaruru was outraged. Fafnir looked away, her expression pained, thinking of Suta's words about saving the world through small acts of kindness. But as she and Ugaruru turned to leave, one of the poachers, driven by desperation, pulled a hidden dagger. He lunged from behind, screaming that he wouldn't let himself die there, aiming his blade at Ugaruru's back. Ugaruru turned just in time to see the attack, her eyes widening in pure shock. Fafnir reacted in an instant, shoving Ugaruru out of harm's way and taking the full force of the strike herself. The poacher was stunned by his own action, not expecting the demon captain to sacrifice herself. Enraged, Ugaruru wasted no time, slamming the attacker face first into the ground with brutal force. She stood over him, calling him an idiot for thinking such a cowardly attack would work against them. She rushed to Fafnir's side, asking if she was okay. Fafnir, trying to be strong, brushed it off as just a scratch. She tried to say it was no big deal, but as she coughed, she was horrified to see her hand covered in black blood. She stared at her glove in disbelief, wondering what this strange substance was and why she was bleeding it. Suddenly, a blinding pain shot through her head, and she collapsed to her knees as her comrades rushed to her side. She fell to the ground, and Ugaruru screamed her name in terror. Ugaruru stared in horror, unable to comprehend the sudden and terrifying turn of events. A horrifying cracking sound echoed through the forest, a sound of something breaking. Fafnir's horn had snapped off and fallen to the ground. She lay unconscious, bleeding from her mouth. The flashback ends. Suda stands in the infirmary, staring in shock at Fafnir's still form. He looks around at the chaotic scene, demons desperately trying to heal Fafnir, the floor stained with blood. Ugaruru sobs, blaming herself, unable to believe that a seemingly small scratch was enough to bring down Fafnir. The demon lord arrives, explaining that the wound itself was not the issue. It was the weapon used. She strides into the room, her presence commanding immediate attention, having already received the report. She asks a frantic healer for Fafnir's condition. The healer explains that their healing magic is being completely drained. The healer desperately explains that it's as if the wound is absorbing their magic, rendering everything useless. The demon lord holds up the poacher's dagger, her expression grim. This is no ordinary knife. She reveals the dagger's name, the Blade of Demonic Severance, a cursed weapon designed to kill demons. Suta and Ugaruru listen in horror. Ugaruru asks with a trembling voice if this means they cannot save Fafnir. The demon lord explains the grim reality. Fafnir's body is nearing its limit, and trying to forcibly remove the curse would kill her. Fafnir lies pale and still, her life fading away with every passing moment. Patty weeps by her bedside, unable to do anything but watch as her friend dies. Ugaruru is crushed by guilt. She whispers that this is all her fault. She explains that if she had been more careful, Fafnir wouldn't have had to shield her from the attack. She breaks down completely, crying that it is all her fault Fafnir is going to die. Hearing her cries and seeing Fafnir on the brink of death, something inside Suda snaps. He roars, "Manifest!" Ugaruru and Patty look up in surprise as Suda summons a can of energy drink with a gorilla on the label. The item is Mountain Genki Gorilla. A flashback shows a young Suda drawing it when he had a cold, wishing for something to make him feel better. The demon lord turns to him, demanding to know what he is doing and if he has a plan. Suda looks from the can to Fafnir's dying form. He admits that he does not know what to do. He clenches the can in his hand, his mind flashing back to the balcony, to Fafnir's promise to trust him. He shouts with determination that he cannot betray her trust, especially not now. He declares to everyone in the room that he will try every single item he has until he finds a way to save her. Ugaruru looks down, her voice filled with despair. "But Faf is already—" She trails off, believing it's too late. Patty, with tears streaming down her face, steps forward. She cries out, "Please let me help too." She explains that Fafnir believed in her when she couldn't even believe in herself. "So, I won't give up on her," she declares. Ugaruru's mind flashes back to a conversation with Fafnir, who had asked for her opinion of Soda. Lounging on the couch, Ugaruru had casually replied that he was interesting and she wouldn't mind playing with him again. Ugaruru had then teased Fafnir for not getting angry, but Fafnir just calmly asked her to keep work and play separate. Fafnir had then looked at Ugaruru with a serious expression, telling her that she trusts in her wild instincts. With a gentle smile, Fafnir had concluded that if Ugaruru thinks he's not a bad guy, then she will believe it too. Back in the present, inspired by this memory, Ugaruru joins Suta and Patty, determined to help. Fafnir groans weakly. the curse continuing to rack her body with excruciating pain. Suddenly, her body convulses violently. She screams in agony as the dark curse spreads further. Patty tries to hold her down, desperately pleading with her not to struggle, fearing it will make things worse. Suda grabs Fafnir's arm, but her dragonic strength is overwhelming. He grunts that she is way too strong. He strains with all his might, but he knows he cannot hold her down for long against her thrashing.
I'll keep her restrained, a determined voice shouts. Ugaruru uses her
Own strength to pin Fafnir's shoulders. With tears in her eyes, Ugaruru apologizes to the group for being so consumed by her guilt. Her expression firms with resolve. "Let's all save Faf together," she declares, uniting the three of them. Suda, fueled by their shared determination, begins to frantically summon item after item from his notebook. The crowd of demons gathered outside whispers amongst themselves, questioning if she can really be saved. But one of them notes with awe that the human, Suda, is not giving up, and hope begins to spread. Sauda continues to shout, "Manifest!" his energy draining with each item he summons from the abyss. Inspired by his effort, the demon lord begins to shout orders, sending her subjects to find anyone who can help. Suda, Patty, and Ugaruru work together, trying anything and everything they can think of to save Fafnir. The floor becomes littered with a mountain of useless, strange items from Suda's notebook. He tries a string of prayer beads, but it has no effect. He tosses it aside in frustration. He desperately flips through his notebook. There has to be something, anything at all. Suddenly, Patty cries out his name, her voice filled with terror and despair. He looks over and sees a horrifying sight. The curse is visibly consuming Fafnir's hand, turning it to ash. Suda stares in absolute horror as the curse's destructive power becomes terrifyingly real. Patty cries, begging Fafnir not to go, pleading for her to open her eyes and come back to them. Ugaruru desperately tries to snap her friend out of it, reminding her of her strength as captain of the dragon unit. Hope begins to fade. Sauda watches, his heart sinking as he wonders if this is truly the end. He looks down at his magical notebook. He questions what the point of this power is if he cannot save her. He grits his teeth, refusing to accept defeat. There has to be something he can do. With tears of desperation streaming down his face, he lets out a raw, powerful scream. "Just let me save Fafnir-san." In the silence that follows his cry, a single, clear ding resonates from his notebook. He looks down, startled and confused by the sudden sound. A new message is glowing on the page. His merchant level has increased to 3 stars, but he doesn't understand why. The notifications begin to flood his vision, dinging over and over as his level skyrockets at an impossible rate. He looks up and is stunned to see a massive crowd of demons filling the courtyard, all of their hopes focused on him. They are all shouting words of encouragement, their voices united in a single plea for him to save their captain. Suda is overwhelmed. He realizes the collective faith and trust of all these demons is flowing directly into him. The demon lord watches, a small smile on her lips. She states the irony. Fafnir's life is about to be taken by humans. But even so, she continues, a human is here, trying desperately to save her. She declares that she, too, is willing to gamble on his skills, her faith being the final trigger. A final, decisive ding sounds. The notebook declares that the necessary conditions have been met. A single shining card floats out of the box of the abyss, glowing with immense untapped power. The notebook announces that a hidden, unique skill has been unlocked, and a complex, glowing cube assembles itself in the air. A vision of Fafnir's radiant smile flashes in his mind. The future they wished for together. His resolve hardens. He declares that he wants to see that future with her. The magical cube displays a final, critical choice. Do you want to summon Nostra? He presses yes without hesitation. His unwavering determination to never give up, fueled by the trust of an entire nation of demons, has finally forged a new path forward, a miracle born from despair.